What's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace episode 149, one episode away from the big 150. It's a shame this isn't 151 because we're talking about a brand new Pokemon game today that has the original 151 Pokemon in the game. We actually have a lot of great stuff to get to in this episode. It is almost Thanksgiving. It's Tuesday night now. Most people are going to be watching this on Wednesday. And then obviously Thanksgiving is Thursday. So if you're traveling...
America only.
Yeah, America only. If you're traveling and you're taking us with you, travel safe.
Well, United States only, because America is also Canada.
Yeah.
And Canada had their Thanksgiving a month ago.
Right, yeah, it was like a month ago. But if you're taking us with you on your travels to see your family or your friends, have safe travels, have a great Thanksgiving, have a safe Thanksgiving. We have some Thanksgiving-themed stuff in today's episode that's going to be fun. We're going to do our annual Turkey Awards, which we always do here on GameFace. Also, we are going to pick the winners of our Sifted T-shirt photo competition in this episode. So some big stuff. We also have some big games to discuss. So let's just get straight to it. The first topic we're going to discuss is not about a game in particular, though. But in my opinion, it is probably one of the biggest stories of this year, as far as the industry is concerned. And that is that Sony has decided to leave E3. One of the big three leaving entirely. So
yeah, no side thing, no press conference, they're not doing a Microsoft or an EA.
Yeah, so because a lot of people will say, oh, well, Microsoft left already. Technically, Microsoft has not left. It still does have a booth, which is basically
just down the street.
Yeah, it has a booth that's like a mixer booth where they do like a live stream from and stuff like that. And then right across the street, they have the full-on E3 experience that's going on during E3.
And EA left completely, but they have their EA Play thing that's going on is in the same city during the same period of time. But Sony clarified to, I think it was Game Informer, that we're not activating that week. We are not doing a press conference. There will be no presence of Sony of any kind in the media that week.
Yeah, it won't even be in Los Angeles at all. Like, they're just not showing up. So we're losing one of the three pillars of E3 for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. So what are the implications of this, Matt?
Well, first, the implication is that, like I said about PSX not being held, whatever Sony has to show next is directly tied to the PS5, and they are not ready to do that. So part of that is clearly they don't feel like spending millions of dollars and paying that money to the ESA for no good reason. Because if you have nothing to show, what are you going to do there? And now you have the public coming, so if you have a disappointing show on the floor, you've disappointed all these people that paid to be there.
Yeah.
In terms of what does it mean to E3, it seems to be just sort of the continuing irrelevance of the show as like kind of the one time during the year you can show all these big things off because you have such a direct connection now with the fan base and with your customer base. Like, you don't really need that anymore. And I think more and more, clearly EA discovered that, although EA also pulling out is similar in the sense that they don't have that much to show, so why spend that kind of money if you don't have to? Because I bet that still, even renting their own venue and doing all what they did for EA, I bet that still costs less.
Probably. Because just so you guys know, when you decide to get a location at E3 and you pay that huge flat fee, I mean, even back when I was working at Game Trailers and we had our little dinky booth, we were spending like $200K for that little like 15-foot by 15-foot space. Like, the first year where we were just kind of jammed in at the end, I think it was 2006 2006, we were up by like the Starbucks in the food court, and they still charged us almost $100K for that little spot there. So when you pay that big flat amount, all that money isn't going to the convention center. The ESA is skimming a large portion of that cash off the top.
Not even that, because the word is that that LA charges them $1 for the convention center because it brings so much money into downtown.
$1. So ESA is making all the money.
Pretty much.
Wow.
So that's the rumor. That's the word.
I've never heard that.
That's the word on the street. Anyway, in the LA governmental scene that I've heard is like
they get a huge break.
Something similar happens with the San Diego Convention Center for Comic-Con. Like, it's so important to the local economy that they basically give them the venue for essentially free. But money has to change hands for it to be a transaction.
Right, yeah.
It's like how CEOs pay themselves $1 a year sometimes.
The timing could not be worse for the ESA for this to happen. First, as we've mentioned, they kind of lost Microsoft and kind of lost EA. At least they're in the ecosphere of E3. But like you just mentioned, now that fans are allowed to come, the show needs to be more than what it is to get fans to go. We're going to go no matter what. It's our jobs to go and cover the industry. But when you're trying to convince somebody, and I don't know if you remember, but we did like an interview with like a ton of people that had flown in from E3 at this past E3, and there were people that had come from all over the world and spent thousands of dollars to go there. If you're trying to convince somebody to do that and spend a huge chunk of change, not just to get there, but once they get there on the tickets to get in, how do you do that when PlayStation isn't there anymore?
Yep. Like the number one console in the industry is not going to show up.
I think the publishers are getting sick of the ESA.
I think so. I think it's funny that I would say if there's one thing, even with the in the wake of the crossplay, dispute, if there's one thing that could bring Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo to agreement at a table, it would be we are tired of giving the ESA all this damn money.
And the problem for the ESA is this is how it makes all its money for the entire year.
I can definitely...
Minus private donations, which aren't that much. Like, we gave them a big check at E3 as part of our Patreon, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what they get from the public. E3 is the entire budget for the ESA. If they don't have E3 and a successful E3, they don't have an organization.
Yeah, you are rapidly approaching E-for-all status with this show if these major players keep pulling out the way they are.
Also, don't forget that, was it 2 weeks ago, the head of the ESA resigned? Which leads me to believe that it knew that this was coming already, and the guy was like, I mean, can you keep your job as the head of the ESA when Sony bails on your one moneymaker for the entire year?
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
And they and the thing is, we found out about this. Basically, it was buried in an ESA press release.
Yeah.
About oh, by the way,
thinking that it would be overlooked. There's no way that's going to be overlooked.
This was not and they did it on the anniversary of the PlayStation 4's release, which was even funnier.
Yeah.
I'm sure that wasn't planned or anything, but it's bad news. I mean, I don't think E3 is never going away. E3 will always be what it originally was supposed to be, which is a place for publishers and developers and retailers to kind of meet and hawk wares and make deals and
basically convince GameStop to buy X amount of copies
and
of
Walmart
their games.
And Target and all. That's what it's for. That's what it's always been for that. And so when you talk about E3 dying, what you're talking about is the media circus surrounding it dying down to a dull roar. So it's not really, it's not.
I think dull roar might even be a little optimistic.
So it's not the Super Bowl anymore. It's more of a, it kind of fades down to sort of equal importance with things like TGS or Gamescom.
The interesting part about it, though, at least from a journalist perspective, is if E3 becomes more closed off and it becomes more industry-oriented, like you said, it goes back to what it was originally intended for.
Or what most industry expos are, frankly.
No, you're right.
I mean, this is not a thing exclusive to the game industry. Almost every major industry does this in some form. It's just for gaming, it became this weird kind of mecca thing.
Well, it's because people care.
Yeah.
It's like, who cares about a convention for, automotive glass or 99% of the conventions that happen in
usually
Vegas.
the week before E3, normally the National Dentists Expo happens.
Yeah.
It's like dental tools.
Yeah.
It's like there are. I mean, I'm sure there are enthusiast press sites for dental tools, but not on the level of what video
That's
games
the next
have.
channel we're going to launch on Sifted.
Drilled with no E.
But the implications of this to me are huge, because it's one thing when EA leaves, which was a huge third party, but when a platform holder, and not just a platform holder, but the platform holder. I mean, let's be honest. There's no bigger platform right now than PlayStation. So
I mean, you're getting down to if Microsoft pulls out a little more and Sony's gone, maybe Nintendo expands a bit, all of a sudden E3 is Spaceland.
Space World.
World, yeah.
In the U.S.
What, you've got they've got them, and you've got Ubi, and you've got Bethesda, and you've got Atlas Sega.
Yeah.
That's basically What
Bandai
Space World would be.
Namco,
It's like
yeah.
it's all, those are all companies that routinely
Would have gone to Space World.
Would have gone to Space World. Routinely support Nintendo now.
Yeah.
Like it's basically Space World.
It's starting to get that way. Because even you start thinking about other companies that left in the past, like Konami, which doesn't show up anymore. I mean,
Well, Konami's their own thing.
Yeah.
Maybe if there was a pachinko wing, we might get them back. And don't rule it out.
But look, if this show keeps going down this path, there might be a pachinko wing. Matt, what do you think has contributed to this happening? What do you think is the cause of this? I mean, you already mentioned you don't think Sony has a lot to show, but most publishers throughout the years for certain shows don't have a lot to show, and they don't bail completely.
Well, I mean, part of it is I think Sony recognizes that the transition between generations this time is going to be weird.
Yeah.
And they seem to have their own plan for that. And apparently E3 isn't necessarily part of it. Maybe they're showing this year, while they showed a lot of good stuff, like their press conference was weird and awkward and sort of
It was weird.
Underwhelming to a lot of people, and maybe they kind of looked at themselves honestly and were like, if we try to do this again, we're just going to be disappointing, so let's not do it at all.
Or maybe it was a perspective of these people don't appreciate anything.
That could also be part of it. I mean, you can't ever rule out.
One thing I will say,
you can't ever rule out arrogant Sony.
I mean, one thing I could say is that it looked like they put a good bit of work into what they tried to do at E3 last year. It just fell flat.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to cost versus what they're going to spend to show what they need to show, versus their interest in controlling the message and not getting lost in the noise. And the fact that you don't really need to come to this once a year big expo thing to have direct messaging opportunity to the public. It doesn't.
Live streaming has kind of changed everything.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way anymore. My main concern.
And we started it. It's like when we started live streaming the press conferences way back when. That was the first step towards where we are now.
Yeah. Even when we were broadcasting them live, it was on
television.
Finally, we brought this into your living room, and you can see that. But once it became democratized to the point of everyone can do it.
Yep.
And it became to the point that anyone with a camera, because we used to walk around, we used to be the only one of 3 camera crews in that hall.
Yeah.
It was us, it was Vic Lucas, and it was like CNN.
Yep.
We're rolling around the cart the size of a love seat
Volkswagen
with all
bus,
these giant Betacam thing.
Yeah.
No one, we couldn't get through places.
Scan converters.
And eventually you started seeing people, look, everybody's got the monopods with the little and then the GoPro showed up, and then everybody's got a camera, and then everybody's got a phone with a camera that's live streaming from the floor, and it became a totally different thing. But the trick is, if you can do that from E3, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime. There's, and you've got, influencers on the level of Ninja that can reach that many people on a daily basis
in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
literally, it's let me just fire up my stream and reach 2 million people.
And not for nothing that a press conference that gets that many eyeballs on it is important.
Yeah.
But it used to be that you needed to kind of ride on the hype of E3 to get people to be aware that, there's this Sony thing to tune into. But now I think Sony can just tweet out that we're going to do this thing at this time on this day, and you'll get that many eyeballs anyway.
They could say it's tomorrow.
Yeah, and it'll be fine. And
because
only one of those
and
only one of those situations requires you to pay millions of dollars to the ESA.
Yeah. Millions.
Which one do you pick?
Yeah, exactly. And you have better control over your message when you're not a part of some big other. I mean, look, I can understand why Sony's done it.
Yeah, and I also think they might be looking at Nintendo and how Nintendo really didn't lose anything when they stopped doing those big press conferences and switched to the direct model.
No, it's true. And I wonder, too, Nintendo now has a lot of leverage. Because it's okay, well, we're the last one left here. So are you going to give us a price cut? Because if you don't, we're on the way out, too.
What are you doing with that space over there? We could, Nintendo... their booth was pretty Spartan last year, but if they get a lot more space to work with at a good price, they did up that booth crazy for Mario Odyssey and for Breath of the Wild. It was amazing with the best visual on the floor. Frankly,
absolutely.
You let them do that and kind of fill that space out that Sony used to be in and make it still look like a big event. Nintendo could save your optics doing that. So I would say Nintendo has probably had a real interesting phone call the last couple of weeks.
Now, one thing I will say is that while I do understand the logic and the thinking behind Sony doing this, I don't necessarily agree with it because, and look, this is like the dreamer in me or the idealist in me, but to me, I feel like all the publishers, particularly big publishers, owe a little bit of something to give back to the industry. Because, look, if the industry's biggest event of the year, which probably now it's not, it's going to be Gamescom, but this, up until now, has been the biggest event of the year. And you wonder, too, if Sony's going to go to Gamescom, or if this is just an E3 thing. That'll be interesting to see how that all
I think it all depends when they decide to, kick off their PS5 messaging.
Yeah.
Like, this is what this is I don't think they have, if they go any further in terms of showing their schedule and their plans, they have to mention PS5 because it's too integral to everything. It's
possible.
I think we might see a very, I think Sony's schedule is pretty well built for 2019, but in terms of like really new stuff, I think we might be seeing Sony running pretty silent until 2020.
It's true, but I feel like Sony owes at least a little something to the industry. And if you don't want to say the industry at large, then what about the third parties that put all the money in Sony's pockets?
That's the only thing.
Because think about it, if Sony isn't there, then less people go. Then less people get exposed to the products across the board. So if you're a third-party publisher and you're like, wait a minute, Sony's pulling out, we have this big, maybe you have an exclusive for PlayStation. And now all of a sudden all the PlayStation fans aren't coming to E3 and you need to go because it's really your only chance to promote your game, you're getting left out in the cold. So to me, it's a very selfish move. I understand why it's being made.
Well, in that case, Sony would have to make up for financially what that developer feels like they're missing out on. Because Sony has to support that. Because if you're a PlayStation exclusive, Sony is probably financially involved with you in some way. So Sony will be able to recompense them for that. I don't think that's the right word.
Reconcile.
They'll be able they'll be able to make it right with that particular company. If you're the problem with a third party, because I feel like that's your big loss as a third party is like Sony's live stream is where you got to see everything.
It's absolutely. I mean, that's what we.
So if I'm a multi-platform person, I'm like, well, I better call Microsoft, frankly, because that's where your opportunity is. So the two big losses for like kind of like the smaller not indie necessarily, but smaller third-party companies is you no longer have Sony's live stream and you no longer have Sony's press conference, which I know didn't really matter this year because they cut everybody out of it. All
first party, yeah.
But in previous years. Sony was a big showcase for a lot of stuff you didn't see anywhere
you'd have several million people watching its press conference.
And you can make a big difference. I mean, there's that stupid indie thing with the Blade Runner style future, what if like the indie game with like the pixel art, The Last Night or something like that, or
I don't know.
It was shown at Microsoft's press conference like 2 or 3 years ago, and it sounds pretty dumb because the actual dystopian element of it is what if feminism won, which is stupid, but everybody knows that game from
absolutely
that press conference.
Who would know what Below is if it weren't for E3?
Well, Below is an exclusive too, so like that even is more of a parallel. There are people that expect Below to shadow drop during Game Awards.
It could happen. I mean, who knows?
It won't. I'm betting it won't. I don't know what the hell Below is doing, but it ain't coming out. I'll tell you that much.
So, look, there are ripple effects all across the industry because of this. And ultimately, I do feel like Sony hasn't really thought about its business partners or its fans. It's a very selfish move. And it's also kind of surprising to me that if in fact it was a financial consideration, that Sony would be making a decision like this based upon money. It's like it's made more money than God over the last 5 years off the PlayStation 4. It's like...
Yeah, but at a certain point, it just means we hammer this all the time. These companies are not your friends.
They're not. You're right.
And they're not the ESA's friend either.
This probably is the clearest example ever of what we've talked about for years on GameFace.
Everyone's E3 is going to be a little more boring because of this.
I mean, just thinking about how we handle E3 when, curating just thousands and thousands, or sifting through thousands and thousands of pieces of content to ultimately deliver around 1,000 by the time E3 is over. But we rely on Sony's live stream for a lot of the gameplay that we end up curating. And
it's a very comprehensive live stream.
Oh, yeah. And they have more live demos than all the other stage
And they've got all the weird Japanese stuff that doesn't go to the other companies.
Because people want to go to Sony stage. Yeah. So it's everything is thrown into a tizzy now. How percentage-wise, how many less people do you think, as far as fans, will go because of the fact that PlayStation's not there? Do you think the majority are probably Nintendo fans?
I think it's mostly Nintendo fans. Yeah.
People who are dedicated enough to spend that kind of money to travel, in my opinion, typically are the Nintendo folks.
I mean, I think there are a lot of PlayStation fans there.
Yeah.
But most of the people I see walking around the pub with the blue badges, most of the blue badges I see,
it's the scarlet letter,
are wearing Pokemon stuff,
hats
or wearing
whatever,
Mario stuff, or like, I mean,
it's just standing in line at Nintendo's booth.
Which also makes, but it also makes sense because Nintendo is frankly the only one of the major publishers that still puts on a show.
Yeah.
You know,
well, like when I went to interview,
I was
people
happy
who paid to go there, I went to Nintendo's booth.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not a crazy Nintendo fan or anything, but like the Breath of the Wild booth is one of the coolest things I've seen at E3 in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like,
unfortunately, a lot of people never even saw it.
Yeah, because it was hard to get into. But I'm like, this is amazing. It was amazing. It looked incredible.
Yeah.
It was like and also because it was so hard to get into, it was one of the quietest and most like relaxing places to be in the entire floor.
Which is hard to find at E3.
But so was the Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
That was great too. Like, I mean, it's Nintendo's booth, not this year because it was just sort of a standard red and white thing because they didn't have a ton this year because it was this year.
But Sony was good about creating a place for people to hang out.
Yeah, but you could tell Sony was a little disengaged in the sense because in previous years, part of it is because of layout, because they use the same layout that they had forever for the last year's, which just got crammed with people because it wasn't designed to handle that many people at once.
Yeah.
So this year it was like one side was this giant bank of must have been 50 or 60 Spider-Man stations. And then the other side was this giant live stream stage, and there was a little kiosk for Black Ops 4, and then the rest was just sitting area for people to sit on soft carpet, which was nice.
Yeah. They had a lot of people laying there on the floor.
It was not as crowded as you might think, but it did. The most crowded I ever saw it was for Death Stranding.
Yeah.
Which because Kojima was there on stage.
Matt, do you think now that they could fit all of E3 into one hall?
No, probably not.
It's close.
They're getting there, but
it's almost there.
If you cut out the one hall was becoming more and more sort of like weird side products. So there was I can never remember which one is which. Okay, so Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft are their South Hall, right? Yeah. So West Hall, with the loss of Konami and EA and Activision
and Microsoft,
like that this year was basically like almost a third of it was like this weird
just empty space.
It was like stuff that would have been in Kensha Hall back in the day.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're getting there. Like if
because you figure out of that one hall,
you'd have to convince some of the other third parties to shrink their booth substantially, but you are getting to the point where you could fit it all in the South Hall.
Because if you think about the West Hall, it's lost Microsoft, which is still there, but literally its booth is about the size of this room now.
Yeah.
It's really small.
It's just a little, kind of almost a little stage and a meeting room.
Yep. It lost EA, lost Activision. Mm-hmm. Those were all gigantic booths.
Yeah, but you can also see, you can see Activision pulling out the last couple of years, too, because once the booth just becomes a big block that you can only get into if you have a meeting.
Yeah.
It's basically going away.
Why are you there?
You're on your way out. Because that was what Konami did the last couple of years, too.
It's like, why wouldn't you just book some meeting rooms in a hotel?
Right.
Instead of paying the ESA all this money.
And sure enough, a lot of that, that happened this year and especially last year, but both years, more and more people were, the press people were getting their demos of these games in the Marriott, the hotel next door, because you couldn't do it on the floor. It's the show is changing. The show is, not to do the opening monologue of the Lord of the Rings, but the world is changing. I can feel it in the water.
Yeah.
And the water costs $5 a bottle.
Yeah.
And people are sick of that shit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I mean, I think even when we talked about kind of the E3, before E3 we have the E3 relevance discussion, and I'm pretty sure this year you even said matter of time, with Microsoft lowering their participation level on the actual floor. I think you pretty much said it's a matter of time before one of the big three pulls out completely, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Did I think that was going to be Sony? No, I really didn't.
I didn't either.
I thought Nintendo would go first.
Well, I think so. I thought Microsoft, because it had already taken.
Well, they're already halfway.
It had already put one foot out the door.
But in terms of the company that would make the leap to say we don't need this, I thought that would be Nintendo.
Yeah. Because its fans are...
Because Nintendo doesn't really need it.
Yeah, it doesn't need it.
I mean,
yeah.
it's nice that they put on a big show for the people who pay to go now.
Yeah.
But would they lose anything if they just pulled out and like rented out like another location
Probably
and just
not.
did that? Like,
I think too, in the last year, the ESA has appeared a little weak. It hasn't, in a lot of cases, stood up for the right things or stood up at the right time for a lot of things. And when you're paying the ESA to do that,
they're really good at not letting people into E3 with valid press passes.
Right,
though.
absolutely.
They're great at that.
So I feel like the ESA has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit across the industry. And when you start thinking about it, you're like, all this money is going into their pockets to basically fund their entire year of operations.
For what?
For what? Exactly. If you're not going to stand up and do the right things for the industry the way that you should be, then what are we paying you all this money for? So,
like, I think it would be a much more black and white, clear-cut decision by Sony in terms of like, oh, do they owe this or should they be? If the public wasn't being let in.
Yep.
Like, I feel like that's kind of the two
rub.
Parts that are like unfortunate or too bad is like, well, people that would want to see that don't get to see it, even if they're paying to go. And a lot of the third parties that don't have an exclusivity deal with Sony are kind of left out in the cold in terms of exposure, unless they can. That's a weird mix of metaphors: exposure and left out in the cold. That's because that's bad.
It's crazy just watching this B-roll, though, by the way, because this B-roll goes back. Sam, is that to 2015? The oldest B-roll for E3? 17. So this is 17.
That's 2 years ago, or 1 year ago.
Think about
2 E3s ago.
Yeah. So just think about how much it has changed already.
Yeah. It
From
doesn't look
17
like that anymore.
to 8. Oh no, not at all. Like, this is a spectacle. It's not really a spectacle anymore. When you walk in
there wasn't really any masses of people that this year at all, except that, like, in line for Nintendo, sure.
Right.
But like this, I never ran into this year. It wasn't that crowded.
So I mean, looking at this B-roll, it kind of is a very clear example of how the show has just been declining for several years in a row now. And I'm sure the writing was on the wall for PlayStation. And look, these publishers have all the data. They have all the metrics. They know exactly how much E3 hurts them or helps them. And they use that data to make this decision, believe me. And I'm sure they took the fans into account and everything we've talked about into account.
I'm sure they took the third parties into account,
and
too.
it decided ultimately that it wasn't worth it.
Yep.
So to me, that's a clear indictment on the lack of effectiveness at E3 at this point. And I wonder, too, if there's just so much signal noise and signal loss that it's become so hard to cut through all the clutter. I mean, I said, like, by the time we finish E3, we have almost 1,000 pieces of content from E3.
I think the main thing is, like, the major companies are finally kind of coming around to the realization that, like, you don't need this. You can create your own, like, big, news event just by announcing it and putting your own thing out. Like, you don't need it. Like, you don't need to pay millions of dollars to do this E3 show. All you need to do is pay a social media guy to run your thing properly and message stuff out, produce a direct, a Nintendo Direct for Sony or whatever. And boom, like, what's the difference?
Yeah. You had mentioned before we started recording that the publishers maybe get together and just do their own event and cut the ESA out.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think is, like, I think the presence of, like, a platform agnostic event is valuable. Like, because for everyone, because, like, say someone who normally wouldn't think about picking up a PlayStation, through E3 gets exposed to Spider-Man. And they're like, oh, I love Spider-Man, I need that. That's a good thing. Like, or someone who normally only does PlayStation sees through the Nintendo, showing at E3, Pokemon Let's Go, and they're like, maybe they haven't played Pokemon since Red and Blue, but they love Red and Blue, and it just triggers something like, oh, I need a Switch because I want to play that game I used to love in this new form.
Yeah.
Like, that's a valid thing, that crossover element of a platform agnostic. So it wouldn't shock me to see, like I said, the three of them get together and say, like, what if we all just did our own thing together and cut out this ESA bullshit?
Because they could also get the hall for $1.
Sure, yeah.
It's not just the ESA that's getting that deal. Anybody could get that deal if the hall believes they can bring in enough people to offset the cost of the rental.
Yeah, and like that's the other question is, like, as E3 morphs or shrinks or does whatever it's going to do, the effect on LA. Downtown LA, which gets a hold. I mean, that E3 is a huge revenue source.
Oh yeah,
for them.
absolutely.
It's not on the level of, like, San Diego Comic-Con, which I believe is responsible for 33% of downtown San Diego's summer revenue.
Totally believe
which
it.
Is
totally believe
crazy.
Yep.
But like E3 comes to town, people renting out theaters, people renting out meeting places, people renting out restaurants. There's events in all these clubs.
I only go to downtown LA
huge.
if I'm going to like a hockey game at Staples Center. I don't go to downtown LA otherwise. But that week, I spend hundreds of dollars in downtown LA.
And that's just for parking.
That's exactly. But that's exactly what LA stands to lose if this show goes away. So it could get to
there
a
are
point,
a lot of interests tied up in
absolutely.
this thing.
It could get to a point where if it gets really sad, the city of LA starts to jump in, and it's like, hey, we can't lose this revenue. This is keeping us afloat.
Yeah.
So it could get really, really tangled and complicated. I don't think it will.
I would guess adding the public to E3 has made it even more lucrative, at least for the hotel business in the area.
I don't think it'll ever go back to that weird year where it was in that airplane hangar in Santa Monica.
No, I don't think we're ever going back to 2007. They learned their lesson.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever go back to there, but I think it's starting to show the signs that E3 had back when they did go to the hangar. Like, it was starting to get a little weak. It was starting to get a little misguided. And publishers were starting to question whether it was all worth it, and then they didn't have it, or they did have it, but it was in Santa Monica and all weird. And then the publishers were like, oh my God, we're not doing this again. And I think a lot of that, too, was perception. When you have the USA Today's and the CNNs and all these major networks coming in to cover your stuff, and it's sad. I mean, I remember on social media, like a lot of the older people in the industry, heck, now I'm one of them, but back then I wasn't one of them. But the senior people in the industry were going on like Facebook and stuff and saying things like, this is a travesty. This is an embarrassment. I had people coming in from China and all these places, and the show was just abysmal. I mean, that show was sad. That happened in Santa Monica. If you came from anywhere from around the world and went to that, you were like, wait a minute. This is the marquee event for one of the biggest entertainment industries in the world? That's it. So I think perception plays into a little bit, but I just think Sony just doesn't seem like it cares. It doesn't seem like Sony feels like it owes anything to anyone. Yeah, it's just like, this is our business. We're going to run it the way we want to, and if we want to cut costs and not do E3 for whatever reason, we're going to do it and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, well, at this point, it's hard to say they're wrong.
Yeah.
They might be wrong.
It's like I said, financially, I can totally understand why they did it, but I think that there are more entanglements to this than just, hey, we're going to save $5 million this year.
Yeah, but
$5 million is like a drop in the bucket to the PlayStation.
But somebody had to walk away from it first.
Yeah.
And there must have been a good reason. I think it's a perfect storm of becoming less. The whole thing's becoming less relevant. You can control your own message any time of the year, whenever you want. They don't have anything that's going to be ready to show in June that would warrant an E3 presentation. And what good is the ESA doing them at this point? Like, I think you've just got so many things piled up all at once that Sony seems to have found it was the right call was just to say, like, you know what, we're just going to not be there this year. Maybe that's only for 1 year. We don't know.
That's the other question. Is it just a 1 year thing, or do you think this is permanent?
I don't know.
I think it's permanent.
I don't know. I wouldn't be willing to make that call yet. I mean, because the trick here is, like, I think the leverage rests with them. Like,
presumably,
I mean, can you imagine, like, if as you're planning for E3 2020 and Sony comes to ESA and it's like, oh, okay, we'd like to be in E3 this year. Is ESA going to say no to that? I don't think so.
I mean, presumably, Sony was playing hardball. I'm assuming it said, look, we're planning on not coming, but if you can cut us a break on the floor space, then maybe we'll consider it.
Do a Microsoft-style thing.
And I'm guessing that the ESA and Sony could never come to an agreement. So,
which makes me feel less bad about the interactions I've had with them.
Yeah.
So it's like, if Sony can't make any freaking headway.
So if presuming that took place, which I think it's pretty safe to say it did take place.
Pure speculation, but it feels like you must have had meetings about this.
I mean, if you know the industry or you work in any industry, that's how things work.
And it doesn't feel like a coincidence that the head of the ESA resigns right before this is revealed.
Absolutely. Maybe a part of the negotiations. Maybe he bombed the negotiations and stood strong when he shouldn't have.
Or maybe nothing could have stopped them from leaving.
Right. But the fact that knowing
but that's still
stuff,
something that would be blamed on you.
But knowing that all this stuff absolutely happened at some point and Sony still decided to leave, to me that doesn't bode well.
Well, then also the other question that raises is, what does Sony know?
Right.
Like, it makes you wonder, like, well, was it because of all that? Or was it because there's something that's going to happen in this upcoming E3 that Sony was like, no, we're not going to be part of that?
It's absolutely possible. Yeah.
As this thing morphs,
I think
as
we'll
they
find out
desperately
eventually.
morph this show to try to stay relevant and try to stay and be something that people want to pay money to come travel and see. Like, who knows who they're going to alienate that's expecting this to be a certain thing and it becomes something else.
I'm sure Jason Schreier is on this story right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Right now. He is sitting somewhere talking on the phone, researching. He is trying
Schreier
to
and
figure out what
Klepek are like all over this
They're
shit.
battling.
Yeah.
They're like, who's going to break the story? So I have a very strong feeling that we're going to find out exactly what happened and exactly why it happened. But until then, it's fun to speculate.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Maybe not as much fun to watch E3 next year.
That's true. It's absolutely true. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about Fallout 76. And as you guys know, I try to never be afraid to admit that I'm wrong. Usually, if I end up being wrong about something, I'll come on the show and I'll say I was wrong. I'm sorry. Fallout 76 is one of those examples. So I played the beta and I enjoyed it a good bit. And I came on GameFace and I said, hey, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. If you're a Fallout fan, you might want to at least investigate it.
And I said,
yeah, you did. And I did not tell you to buy it, which I feel a little bit better about. I did not say go out and buy the game. And then I started playing.
But you did say you'd pay $60 for it.
I did. You're absolutely right.
I specifically asked you that.
You're right. You did. And I didn't tell anyone else to spend $60 though. That's the difference. And now I'm glad that I got sent the game for free. That's all I'm going to say. Because what I've discovered with Fallout 76 is that it puts on a good face for the first handful of hours. And then after that, I don't even know if it goes downhill. It just never goes uphill. It's what I experienced in the first handful of hours playing that beta. It never changes. Mm-hmm. You eventually fight more powerful creatures in the game, but the actual design of the game never changes. And so I played the beta on Xbox One, and I played that for 5 or 6 hours, and then I got the final version on PS4, and I've played that now for, I don't know, probably 15 hours, something like that, and I have no interest in playing that game anymore. In fact, after I got to like the 10-hour mark, doubled what I had played before, because I had to play through the whole stuff I had played already, and I had to replay it. Once I played another 5 hours past that, I had very little interest in going back to this. And I think probably what turned me off the most about it is that once you kind of get through the honeymoon phase with the game after the first few hours, it becomes all about base building. And that was a part of Fallout 4, but it was like a part of it that I only kind of experimented with and fiddled with.
Well, also it was a part you could easily ignore.
And that's not the case with Fallout 76. Your constructions are a huge part of the game.
Taking the wrong lesson from Fortnite, boys.
Well, yeah, except that you don't build this on the fly. It's like this thing that you build, and then it's supposed to stay there, but if while you're gone, somebody else comes and puts their thing down on the same piece of land, yours gets boxed up and put kind of in a container somewhere. So when you come back, you can put it back down somewhere else. But what I found is that when I come back to put my place down, it's not the same. There are things missing from my camp. Like objects that I crafted and built and put in place are gone. Also, like when you build your base on a piece of land, it's like the land isn't perfectly flat. So you allocate for dips or little downhill slopes or whatever. When you get your encampment back, the CAMP back, I don't know why they've decided to call it that. It's
Fallout has a history of cutesy 4-letter acronyms.
Acronyms, yeah. And
your gecko.
Yeah, exactly. So when you get it back, you don't have that same piece of land to put it on. And like everything doesn't line up and it gets very fidgety trying to get it to adhere to this new piece of land that isn't exactly the same topography.
Weird. It seems like that's kind of basic functionality stuff.
No, Matt. That's the problem with this game. It does not handle basic functionality. I've not had as many bugs as other people have had. I've had bugs, but not as many as others. Like I haven't had any bugs where I had to go back and play huge chunks of the game. That's happening to a lot of people. But I had a bug where I died, and the prompt came up to respawn, but it never became active. And so I walked away and left the game playing on my TV. I'm like, maybe it's just trying to sort things out, and 20 minutes from now, the button will be coming. I went back. It did not. I ended up losing everything. So when you die in the game, a little box is deposited on the ground that holds all your stuff. And then you have to go back and get it. And when that happened, when I died, for whatever reason, the code got all screwy and it never left the box. So I lost everything that I had been carrying. The game is just littered with little stuff like that, just these little quirks or bugs or issues that after you keep playing it for a long time, it just starts to add up. And so while I'm playing this, I'm comparing it to Destiny, because to me, that should be the fair comparison. I mean, they're similar games. I've played a ton of Destiny, and so just
kind of
inevitably,
an open world-ish, run around, mingle player shooter,
public events happening on the fly. And honestly, I think the biggest problem with this game, with being designed the way it is that there's just not enough people per server.
It was like 32?
Yeah. And the world is just so big. Like, these public events happen. I had better luck in the beta getting people to play public events with me. And I think that's probably because people haven't bought the game or whatever. When it was free, they were willing to try it. But now it's like a public event pops up. You're by yourself. It's you fighting like 8 mutants, and they hit you like twice and you die. I'm having, like, no fun with this game, Matt. Like, none. Like, there are a few moments here and there. Like, some of the discovery in the game is kind of cool and gives you a little bit of that Fallout vibe, but then you actually get close to everything and it looks so god-awful. You know, they're saying that they're going to keep using this engine for Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield. This is one of the ugliest games I've played in a long time, and I talked about that when I played the beta. I mean, it looks good from far away at times.
Yeah, I don't know what they mean about... I mean, I know, like, Kotaku ran the thing about how, like, you know, complaining about the engine is the wrong complaint or whatever. It's kind of a shorthand for just, like, these games seem primitive now. And whether they're talking about, you know, okay, we're using the same engine, but we're kludging together another update of the engine like they did for what they're using here. Yeah. Because it's still, you know, at the core of it is still Gamebryo. Whatever they call it now, creation engine or something like that. And I'm sure, you know, they definitely was an upgrade with Skyrim. You know, once you saw Skyrim, I'm like, oh, wow, that looks way better than Oblivion or Fallout 3. And I'm sure whatever they do to it for Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 will look better than this. But,
God, I hope so.
But you're still going to deal with the underlying things that this engine just can't do, or whatever their tech they're using just can't do. You wonder what they're doing to try to, like, up the stakes in terms of combat, because that's really where they fall short, is like nothing feels good to shoot or to swing.
Yeah, it's passable.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, oh, it's not awful.
Yeah. And it
doesn't feel good.
And it was one thing when, like, the Bethesda open world stuff was sort of the only game in town in terms of delivering that experience. But, like, everybody does that now. Yeah. And it all works a lot better than this.
Fallen behind, yeah. I mean, they were the ones that started it.
Even their own shit.
They've been lapped.
Look at Rage 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's about to come out, and it looks way better. I mean, it's a post-apocalyptic shooting, crazy comedy, awesome, like, open world game from the same publisher. And it looks way better than this.
I'm starting to think Bethesda needs to reallocate its franchises to other studios.
Or at least have like a couple meetings with id or something. Like, what's going on?
I don't know, man. But this game to me is really depressing. Really, really depressing on so many levels. It's like, so at first the lack of a story didn't bother me that much. But again, like the first 5 hours, it wasn't a big deal. But as the game starts to literally just grind along, there's nothing to break it up. There's nothing to provide those peaks and valleys that I talk about all the time that the best games have. It's just this steady, long grind, and it's very easy to stumble into enemies that you shouldn't be messing with, even though it's the quest that the game gives you. It says, go here. You go there, and there's some mutant defending the objective that's like 15 levels more powerful than you. You're like, well, crap. And you turn around and walk away, and it shoots you once and kills you. Like, the whole thing. And then, so anyway, back to the story. It's like, I was okay reading logs for 5 hours. After 5 hours, I was sick of reading logs. And the other part about it, too, is that the story is all told in past tense. So you're basically, you're just reading logs of people who died. They're people who came before you or weren't allowed to go into the vault because they weren't smart enough or rich enough or whatever, and you're just reading stories of these pathetic people who were left to die in a nuclear holocaust. There's no levity involved. It's everyone's just bummed out and depressed because they're about to die. Mm-hmm. They've been stuck out in the wilderness while other people got to go inside. So it's just very depressing. Like, you just hear these retellings of, I tried to save my daughter and I lied on top of her when the blast hit, but she, like, it burned off both her arms. Just this horrible, like, these stories. It's like there's no motivation to play the game because everything just bums you out.
Believable stuff for the subject matter, but like that's not really what Fallout's ever been.
It's really not.
Fallout
it's about like society after the people who survive.
Well, Fallout is a satire of kind of like ridiculous. I mean, that's the whole. That's why when people were complaining that like it like has this cavalier use of nuclear weapons because you can nuke people's bases and stuff in this game, and it's like, yeah, that's Fallout. It's like. That's the whole joke of Fallout is that all this horrible shit happened, the world ended, and no one learned anything.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing. Like, it's using kind of the absurdity of the old atomic age propaganda stuff and those like kind of that's the same with the special things. It's like duck and cover and all that crap. Like it's like all that sort of like weird naivety.
Oh, the PvP stuff, by the way, completely pointless.
Yeah.
It is pointless. Nobody uses it.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody shoots you. If you shoot them back, then it's on, and nobody does it because
why would you?
Why? What's the point?
I also saw a thing where a bunch of people like basically coordinated, so they got the ability. So 3 different people got the ability to launch a nuke at the same time. So
crashed
they
the game.
3 nukes at once, and it crashed the whole thing. Also like I credit to Jim Sterling because I watched his Jimpressions on this, and the first thing that happens is. I think it was Jimpressions. Maybe it was somebody. I thought it was him. I watched a few videos of this because I didn't play it because I refused to buy it. So I just watched a bunch of impressions videos, and I think it was his. But basically, it starts and like right at the beginning, it starts and like the gun goes up for like a reload animation, and it just stops. And like I thought YouTube froze.
Yeah.
Like I was messing with it. I'm like, oh, what's wrong with you?
The game
and then the thing pops up and says like
time.
nothing. It actually popped up a little too late for my tape, but it popped up text. It's like, no, your video hasn't frozen. This is still live footage of the game. And it just hangs there, hangs there. You've been disconnected. And it's like, and you can still hear stuff happening.
Yep.
And then he comes back, and of course he's been killed. And it's like, and he does, it's a couple times in the video where like that kind of thing happens. And it's just, I mean, yes, it's a Bethesda game. You expect it to be rough when it launches because they always are.
But see, there's a difference with this game.
But this is like, this feels real early access-y.
And in fact, Andrew Reiner from Game Informer put it best. I saw he posted something on social media last night. He said, you expect Bethesda games to be buggy when they first launch. But you know that, and you have a problem, you just reload your save and try again. But you can't do that with this game. The
nature of this game prevents that.
When something bad happens, it's for good. There's no going back and reloading an old save to get around it. There's no skipping it. It happened. It's over. There's no rolling it back. And that is a huge, huge difference.
You got to live with it through no fault of your own, basically.
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very astute, insightful comment about this game that I had not really actually even picked up on myself. So, I do not recommend this game.
Even just looking at the objectives in the corner of the screen right now,
I
am bored.
Dude, they never end. But here's the thing. All the objectives are like, go here and read this computer terminal. Or go and pick up 5 bottles at a drive-in theater. It's like, what, I'm a trash man? Like, dude, there's the apocalypse. There's crap laying everywhere. And you want me to pick up 5 freaking bottles? Like, ugh. I don't know what Bethesda was thinking with this, Matt. I really have no idea.
I think they were thinking we need to put something out.
Yeah, and ultimately
because they didn't make. This was the team that was going to make Battle Cry.
Yep.
So to me, this really feels like a clutch together. We got to put something out in 2018 because we got to stall for time for our real releases later.
You could have killed the franchise though.
It doesn't really matter though because Fallout 5 has got to be like a decade out.
All right.
So
by then, everyone won't even remember this game.
No.
Unless they try to do it again. Although they say this game is forever, Matt.
Uh-huh.
But, so here, I mean, really, the core problem with the game...
So is the musical Cats.
Yeah.
That closed, too.
The core problem with the game is that you need, for that design to work, you need just millions of people. And there aren't. There aren't enough people to support the design of the game. It's like when I enter a public event, and I'm the only one in it, and it goes on for like 15 minutes, and still no one showed up?
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, Destiny 2, at least, like, somebody shows
Oh,
up.
almost immediately.
Yeah.
Even now, I bet.
Even if it's just like 2 or 3 people, you're gonna have people doing something.
Yeah. And it's like you can party up with 3 other people, so 4 people can play together. And I will say that when I did find a group of people with this game, it was moderately enjoyable.
Yeah, all the positive impressions I've read all have to do with playing the game with your friends.
Yeah.
There was somebody on Twitter I was following. It was like, we're having a great time because I'm playing with my sister and she's never played Fallout and she's yelling about this and I'm making fun of her for this and we're screwing around on this bridge and running around. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not the game.
No.
That's
any game.
That could be true of almost anything that lets you play together.
Yep, exactly. I don't know. To me, you're right. I mean, the next Fallout probably won't be out until I'm retired. Yeah. But
do we get to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people retire anymore. But the stench of this game and the burn that Bethesda's fans are going to feel for this game is going to linger for a long time. It may take that long for people to forgive and forget. But I feel like its Metacritic right now is like 4. I think that's maybe a little angry.
What, like 40 something?
Yeah, it's like 40. I think the different versions are higher.
PC is higher than PS4, but PS4 was like 49 last I checked.
Yeah, I think that might be a little aggressive, but
none of the major sites seem to have weighed in yet. Like they had a lot of like impressions.
It's all small fan sites.
And it was like they had impressions. I think in the bottom of the Metacritic page for like Eurogamer and a couple other places. But I mean, all of their impressions were like, "This game blows!" Like it was.
The fan score is 2.5.
Yeah, there's a
2.5.
There's some brigading happening, but I think you could have seen that coming just off of the response to the. I mean, certainly I don't write user reviews for stuff, but like I certainly saw this and saw the whole concept behind it. Was like, nope. Like maybe if it was made by somebody on the par with Bungie. If it was like a Destiny 2 level of polish, maybe. But this is just Fallout 4 online. I mean, every bit of footage I watch about this game looks like a mod to me.
Their fans are so desperate that there are players who are acting like NPCs. I'm not kidding. They're standing at the mission points, waiting for players to come, and they're acting like an NPC. And they're standing there and saying, "You should go over here and do this and do that," trying to basically spackle over Bethesda's cracks for Bethesda.
That is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard.
Yes, it absolutely is very weird.
And I just saw people wait in line to get on a train in Star Citizen last night.
I think that actually wins, maybe.
I don't know. One. I've at least seen that before because I don't know if anybody remembers, but back in the old EverQuest days, back in the 90s, when you had once people had figured the game out and basically there were specific monsters you had to kill and they respawned in a certain amount of time, you would get in line. You would go to where the monster was and everybody would get in line, and as the monster would spawn, if you were the front one, you go up, take your turn to kill it and walk and go on the way. And people would just stand there in line and talk to each other while they waited for the monsters to respawn, and it was very organized and civil. It was it was great, And it was, there was a PvP aspect. So if anybody came along and tried to cut in line, you just all kill it.
All hacking down,
It was good times, but no, it wasn't because it was terrible. But it was also good times in the sense of there was that emergent element of a social order had been imposed because the gameplay design was so terrible.
And that's what's happening here.
And that's what's happening. That's what's happening when you're waiting in line to get on a train to commute somewhere in a
virtual
game.
world.
And it's also what is happening here, where okay, there's a clear deficiency here, and we are going to, pretend that this is a different thing.
I think the other thing too is that Todd Howard was a little deceptive when describing this game.
At the very least, they were evasive.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't see this thing actually played until a month ago?
Yeah. I mean, think about how many episodes in a row we were like, when are we going to see this game? Is it
what in the
out?
world about this was worth hiding?
Well,
yeah, I think you got to show. You got to.
He should have been hiding it.
Right, but you got to own up to what this thing is.
I absolutely see now why we never saw footage of this game until a month before its release, because it's not a pretty picture.
So it's not Almost Heaven?
No.
In West Virginia?
And so that's the other thing. So it's set in West Virginia, an alternative take on West Virginia.
Waste Virginia.
Waste Virginia. I have not heard that pun yet.
I think it's the name of the official thread on Reset Era.
Ah, okay. As somebody who was born there and still goes back there over the holidays to see a couple family members that still live there, it is not a faithful recreation of West Virginia. The general look is very accurate as far as the rolling hills and the vegetation and things like that. But like the one town that's a big deal in the game, Grafton, that town is very small, Matt. Literally, driving from one end of Grafton to the other is probably about a half a mile. So, very easily, they could have recreated that town down to every last board. But to me, the Grafton in this game is not Grafton. It doesn't look anything like it. It's not laid out the same. It's bigger than the real Grafton.
Well, it's an alternate universe.
It is, absolutely. It is not accurate, to say the least. It's more like it's inspired by these locations than replications of the locations. And it'll be interesting to see how people from that state react to it. They're really excited about it. They gave Bethesda the key to the state or something crazy.
Yeah, and I saw they made it the official game of West Virginia or something.
Well, I think they made Emergence Day, an official holiday.
Yes.
Re-Emergence Day is an official holiday now in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that a lot of people in that state are going to play this game and be like, they just said it's West Virginia. It really, and there's signs that say Morgantown or Grafton, but it really could just be anywhere. I mean,
that's why you never believe election promises.
Yeah, that's true.
Once the apocalypse happens and you're out, nobody cares.
Yeah. So I would say, based upon what I've played so far, I don't know if I'm going to finish it. I don't know that you do
Can you finish it? Yeah.
So I'm in this quandary. I'm like, okay, how much of this do I need to play to write the game eval? And I have not. So there is a campaign, meaning there is a list of missions that you follow, and there, at least right now, is a last mission that you need to complete. And basically all you're doing is running around after this person called the Overseer and these other people who were smart enough to get the hell out of there. And you're forced running around after them. And you're like, wait a minute, all these people left. What am I doing here? I'm the idiot that's still here? So there is a finite number of missions right now in the game, where I guess you finish it, but it's all the same. It's okay, well, you found this location. Well, now I've gone over here and follow me over here. You're basically tracking this Overseer the whole way through the game. And it doesn't change. It's the next mission, go here, you go there. Like I said, pick up 5 Coke bottles off the ground. It's what am I doing? It's one of those games where I play it and I'm like, what? I'm wasting my life playing this game.
I feel like as juvenile as his actions were, we are all that guy who knocked all this stuff over in the GameStop.
Yeah.
on that video. On one hand, I'm like, that's a really pathetic way to behave, but on the other hand, I get where you're coming from.
I kind of get it, yeah. If you haven't seen that, by the way, it is on Sifted Curated. Some guy went on a rampage in a GameStop. It was a rampage.
Yeah.
It wasn't
He did not, however, knock over the Red Dead Redemption 2 display.
No, he didn't.
I thought that was very telling. He's like, no, this one's
okay.
How
funny would it have been if he I like that one.
Yeah, no, that one was all right.
And yeah, I mean, if I were a hardcore Fallout fan, I would be that mad.
I mean, but also if you're not super paying attention, you just know there's a new Fallout game coming and you don't know much about this thing, and you get it home and it's that, and you can't get your money back for basically what you feel at that time is being sold a bad.
I'm guessing he bought it the night before.
Yeah,
went home, played it, came back the next day.
This is not.
And they're like, we aren't taking that return.
Yeah, well, you can hear him. They say you can only trade it in for store credit, and he just sort of snaps and starts knocking things over. And I'm like,
great video. Yep.
Yeah.
Understandable. It's not GameStop's fault though.
No.
But they took the brunt of it for Bethesda.
And that's a lot of gift cards that somebody's got to pick up.
Here's another example of what I'm saying about how nobody is isolated in this industry. Everything has a ripple effect, a trickle-down effect on other people or other companies. Here's GameStop getting screwed because Bethesda put out a piece of crap game.
And I'm just saying, nobody did that for No Man's Sky.
No.
And people were real mad about
No Man's Sky. Yeah. Well, they just went after the developers instead.
Right. But You could have done that with this too. But
I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Howard starts getting a little bit of heat, because a lot of the stuff he said about this game, now that I'm playing it...
Is it his fault, though? Like, he didn't... His team didn't make this game.
No, but he's the spokesperson for it.
Thing.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to make sure all that stuff's in the game and it's all working and it's legit before he goes on a big stage and tells millions of people, hey, this is in the game. This is what this game is like. So...
He said they were very nervous.
I mean, that anger should be directed more at Todd Howard than at GameStop.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Absolutely. So,
but I can also understand frustration with GameStop's return policy.
Yeah,
so.
But you just don't buy stuff at GameStop. You know that before you buy a game there, what their return policy is. And I just don't shop there. So,
yeah,
just prevent that tragedy. Just avoid it altogether.
I went into one to get the exclusive Starlink ship last month. I think that's the first time I've been in one to buy anything.
Last time I was in one was when I went and bought PlayStation VR.
Well, that's
So there you go.
I think I got that from Amazon. So.
Yeah, I got it from GameStop because it was like one of the only ones that had them still in stock on launch day. So, yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, if I need a game, like if I'm going to go to a brick and mortar store for a game, I am always going to go to Best Buy first.
Yep. And there's one literally like a block away from me, which is just too easy. So.
Yeah. Also, like GameStop's kind of depressing when you go in.
They are depressing.
And it's just like there's not really anything there, but it's just like half of it is all these weird tchotchkes and toy things, and you're like, this is what's keeping you alive right now.
It is too. If you look at their financials, it's absolutely what's keeping them afloat.
Those frickin' Funko Pop things.
Yep. Yep. All right, so that's Fallout 76. I do not recommend a purchase on any platform. I played Xbox One. I played PlayStation 4. It looked a little better on PlayStation 4, but not much. Yeah. Just a shade better. But the real problem, even though the game is not pretty, the real problem is just the game's design and its myriad bugs. So I recommend staying away. A lot of you guys figured it out a long time ago. In fact, a lot of you guys figured it out before I did, until I played the beta. Once I played the beta, I was like, oh, I kind of had fun with it. But yeah, it was fleeting. And
yeah, I'm going to have to put this in the called it slot.
Definitely so. Yeah, that one right all along. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Thanksgiving, which is just a couple days away. A lot of people are going to be watching this on Wednesday, which means it's tomorrow for you. Mm-hmm. And
or
Matt, what are
nothing if you're in Europe.
You're right, yeah, or it's just another dumb American holiday for other people. Matt, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Nothing, I don't think, really. We'll probably get some turkey or something.
You're not headed up north to see the family?
No. Thanksgiving's not really a thing in my family.
Yeah.
And I think I've told the story before of when we first moved to LA, the first year I drove back up for Thanksgiving, and it took me 12 hours to get back the Sunday after.
That's right, yeah.
I think you and I were both in that.
We were, yeah.
And then the following year I flew back, and that took almost longer.
Because every flight from San Francisco is delayed.
Yeah, and after that, I just said to my mom, like, you know what? I'll just see you at Christmas from now on. And she's like, that's fine. Thanksgiving was never really a thing, a big important thing to our family. It was, I don't know why. It just wasn't we didn't have people over. My grandparents weren't interested in cooking. It just never a thing. Like we had a different meal. We had turkey and like a different meal that day, but like it was not like a crazy. It's not like like you see in the movies where everybody gathers around and everyone you've never talked to in a year shows up again and there's a giant turkey and crazy things. It's not like that. The biggest Thanksgiving,
my family does all that stuff.
Biggest Thanksgiving feasts I've ever had are here in LA when everybody who's stuck in LA gets together and does like the orphan Thanksgiving thing. Yeah. That happens a lot here because no one's from LA.
Right.
So the people who don't want to leave, don't want to go home or can't afford to go home generally gather and have their own Thanksgivings. And I've had a couple of like those orphan Thanksgivings, which are like the craziest, biggest, most amazing feasts I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like
they can
they're
be
good
fun.
times. But yeah, I don't leave town for that. It's a sucker's game, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm staying local too. I'm not going anywhere for Thanksgiving. My wife is going home, but I'm not. I have to go back in just a few weeks for the holidays for Christmas. And
that's the other thing is like you do all that, and then it's like 3 weeks later you got to do it again. It's just like,
I just honestly I can't afford it, so I have to save my money for the one trip back for Christmas. So I'll be here. We are taking the day off of Sifted. We're not going to be curating. We're going to just let the site sit still for a day. We need at least one day to kind of enjoy ourselves. I am going to the Houdini Mansion.
Nice.
I did this last year, actually. One of my buddies started throwing Thanksgiving at the Houdini Mansion. And it was a great time last year, and so he's going to do it again this year. So I'm going to head over there and have some food and toss back a drink or two and watch some football for the day. So Sifted will be quiet on Thursday. We'll kick things back off on
Thursday.
Friday.
Nintendo pulls out of E3.
Then I think we'll probably go and curate the story. But otherwise, it's going to be a quiet day on
Vincent,
Sifted.
keep your hand on that button.
No. Vincent needs to take the day off. He needs to hang out with his family and have some good food and kick back and maybe play some games. He's not doing anything on Thursday. So, as is a customary here on GameFace and at Sifted, we do two things for our Thanksgiving episode. We share what we're thankful for in the gaming industry, and then we pick our turkey for the year, which is a game, a company, a person who basically just really pissed us off and earned the turkey award. So we're going to start with good stuff. We're going to say first what we're thankful for in games for 2018. Matt, you start.
This is a kind of, I guess my answer to this is a little esoteric this year, but mostly I'm thankful for, like, even in the kind of the big hit blockbuster driven kind of AAA focused industry that we're in right now, that there's so many companies and willingness to localize and make these weird little quirky niche games that, like, you sometimes you just look at them and you're like, how is this a thing? Like, how did this get made? And I'm talking about, like, the fact that we're getting like 6 Yakuza games brought to the United States in like 3 years, or like the weird little indie stuff that shouldn't exist, like The Messenger, or a new No More Heroes game coming, or like things like that. Just like the fact that these things continue to exist, and or like what was it? Yuko's, what's that? I can't ever remember
Island
that. Island
Express?
Yuko's Island Express, or Yoku's. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
Just like, it's like, pinball Metroidvania.
Platformer, yeah.
Like, what? Yeah, absolutely. It's like, why is this a thing? Who cares? It's great. Just the fact that, like, when I'm tired of kind of playing these standard, when I'm tired of throwing 70 to 80 hours at, like, the Assassin's Creed open world game, I can sit down with one of these weird ass things. And one of the best ones coming up on the Switch, you got a Katamari remaster coming up.
Absolutely.
Like that's another game in that
Doesn't get any more weird than that.
Yeah. So I'm glad that, basically, I'm just glad that
the people are there to support it. If
people
it weren't for people buying it, they
people
wouldn't
are there
exist.
to support it, and it's still you can still find those weird things, because the weird stuff has always been, like, the thing that, like, I enjoyed the most about games. In a lot of ways, and so I'm just glad that hasn't gone away, because there were a lot of people that were worried that stuff like that would go away over the course of the last few years.
No, I think we've even talked about it before,
and I feel like it's still going pretty strong.
Absolutely, yep. Every year we go to do this, and I want to pick something different, because I always I tend to give the same answer to this every year, particularly since we launched Sifted. And I thought this year I was gonna come up with some other thing, but then I mentioned last week that our Patreon was doing really poorly, and it shot up by like $200 or $300 in a couple days. And here I am again on Thanksgiving, being very thankful for our patrons and our subscribers. A lot of people would look at Sifted and say what we don't have. You don't have that many patrons. You don't have this. You don't have that. You don't have tons or whatever. But I prefer to look at it like what we do have. And what we do have is a very, very dedicated audience, a very generous audience, a very caring audience. And it's another year where I cannot be thankful for anything more than you guys. I just cannot. It was very inspiring to see over the last week, to see you guys step up. And I hate that it's the same people who end up stepping up time after time. But I can't control what you guys do. And it just turns out that you guys are just awesome people. And you care about Sifted very much. And we're going to get into the photo stuff a little later. I was very impressed with some of the stuff that you guys did for the t-shirt photo competition. It's just very overwhelming and heartwarming. And I think it's very easy to always look at your life or anything and say, oh, we don't have that, or we didn't get that, or this didn't happen, or this didn't work. But I prefer to look at what has happened and what has worked. And the fact of the matter is that Sifted has now lasted for like 3 years. All because of people basically donating money to the cause. I can't think of too many people I know or any friends that I have that have a group of people that support them the way that you guys support us. So I'm very, very thankful for you guys. Very thankful to be in this situation. Very thankful to still be working in this job, to be perfectly honest with you, because you start looking and thinking about life after Sifted, and it's not really a life in games, to be perfectly honest. I mean, there just aren't any jobs. That's the truth of the matter. And for a lot of the jobs that are there, I'm way overqualified for them. So when I start looking realistically at what my life is after Sifted, if it does come to it, it's a very different life for me. And so just being able to do this for another 3 years that I've been able to do it since I left GT, I'm just very thankful for that. And if it weren't for you guys, it wouldn't have happened. I would already be working probably at some boring job in some boring industry. So thank you. I am so, so thankful for you guys. I can't say it enough, and I may get annoying, but I'll keep saying it anyway. So thank you guys very much, and girls. We do have some female subscribers, believe it or not. So thank you guys and girls very, very much for another year. Starting to wind things up here. But I just want to let you guys know that, in honesty, I love you guys. You guys have become like my friends and my family. And I can't even express how much I appreciate you guys. So, once again, I'm most thankful for you. Now let's get to the
Okay, but other than that.
Let's get to the turkey.
Give us a game.
Well, obviously, I'm thankful for all the great games that came out this year. Sam just bought a PS4.
Yeah.
One
of us.
Yep, he's one of us now. After, how many years have you been RTD? 3? 2 years? 2 years. 2 or 3 years of him doing this show every week for 3 hours. We finally convinced him to get a Generation 8 console.
That Spider-Man bundle convinced him.
Yeah. Which is a great deal, by the way. If you guys are looking for a PS4, you haven't got one yet, go buy the Spider-Man bundle. It's $200, and you get the console and the game. It's like a $160 value.
Yep.
Go get it. It's all over the place. It's on Sifted right now. Just go to our deals channel. You'll find it there. But anyway, Sam has finally jumped in.
Yep.
He is he's one of us. So welcome, Sam, to Generation 8. And the good news for him is that he has 1 billion awesome games to play.
Yep.
Just like that.
And they're about to be real cheap.
They are. And he's going to pay like a third of the price that we paid for all our games.
Yep.
Maybe ultimately he's the smart one.
Yeah.
But
you get into consoles at the end of each generation, you're basically riding high for very little money.
But what I was getting at is I'm very thankful for all these great games that we have, because they convince people like Sam to jump in and become a part of everything. Mm-hmm. So
someone who was mostly happy playing SimCity on his phone.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, so let's get to our turkeys, Matt. What is your video game turkey for 2018?
Yeah,
you all right?
Just thinking about it.
You need the Heimlich or something?
Just thinking about this is giving me...
You want me to go first?
Give me hives. I mean, usually, I think we've established a pattern for the turkey thing. You pick an overarching trend or situation, and I pick the game I hated the most.
It's pretty accurate. That's usually how it goes.
So this year, we're going to continue that, and my turkey is Detroit.
Okay, explain why.
It's garbage. It's just... The main reason Detroit pisses me off, and it's not that, like, it's super terrible, like, in terms of, like, David Cage games. It's like, I'd say it's probably better than the other ones for the most part.
Yeah.
It's that, like, there's this amazing tech. It looks gorgeous. Like, there's this amazing tech and this huge budget, and they keep giving it to this guy. And it's like, couldn't you give it to someone that could make something, like, interesting that maybe doesn't feel like it's written by someone that has seen 2 movies and then hit their head?
Like, been hanging out with Uwe Boll.
Yeah. It's just like, it's tackling this thematic idea. It's a valid idea for this.
It could be a great idea.
Sure. I mean, you saw a little bit of an Ex Machina, which was a very good film.
Yeah,
but, like, it's just the parallel doesn't work with the civil rights idea. You can't unmoor the idea of 400 years of human chattel slavery from the idea of, like robots. Yeah. Of, like, racial oppression. Yeah. And then just make it, like, robots. Like Like
The problem
you
is
can
it's a
draw
very delicate topic.
Yeah, well, you
that
can
was
draw a
not handled
parallel
very deftly.
No, you can draw a parallel, but you can't do it as nakedly and like artlessly as Cage does in this game. Like it just and like you especially can't do all that and then like embarrass me to the point that I have to stop playing your game. And as soon as I go back to the main menu, the girl in the main menu throws a Martin Luther King quote at me.
Oh, boy.
Because you have not earned
boy.
the ability to quote Martin Luther King at me, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know, it's amazing tech and attention to detail and animation work in the service of just such a puerile, juvenile take on what should be some pretty hefty subject matter. And I just find it tremendously embarrassing and a waste of resources. And I wish they'd basically take all this tech and give it to someone who can write for once, because there's something here. Like there's something here. It's just it's held back.
Well, the fact that you keep trying, giving it a chance, shows
and he
that
does
it's something
slowly
that-
improve. I mean, this is better for the most part in terms of most of the writing, in terms of sounding like something a native English speaker would say most of the time. Clancy Brown's performance is fantastic, in part because it's captured so well. You're clearly watching Clancy Brown, who's one of the best character actors working. So is Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen is only in it briefly, but he's great. Like, you know, you can see that the actors who can take whatever crap they're given on a page and turn it into something in their heads and in their performance that makes it a human thing you can identify with. You can also see this in the Star Wars prequels with people like Ewan McGregor and Ian McDiarmid. Doesn't matter what they're given; those actors can take this crap and make it something real in their heads, and that comes across on camera. So it's not like it's devoid of good points. It's just it makes me mad because storytelling is making advances in the industry. You are seeing more and more ways of telling a story in games that gets something across that means something, or at least gets something across that, like, you know, is an attempt at something that matters. And none of those other projects to me have the backing and the money and just so much, you know, so many resources to just throw at it. And this, you know, this Quantic Dream does, and this is what we get.
I have a question for you, actually. How far did you play? Did you play a lot of it?
I got about halfway, 2/3 through. Like it got to the point where like the protest stuff was getting violent, and like you were making the decision with Marcus to like, oh, do you shoot the gun? Do you not shoot the gun? And it was just like it just got artificial to the point where I'm like, okay, Marcus as a character would probably shoot the gun as I've been playing him, but like I know not to shoot the gun if I want the good ending.
Right.
But it was just it was just like
That's funny.
it was just so removed from caring about what would happen in the story, and more about like, well, how do I get to the end, navigate the weird end of this in a way that the game will find satisfactory or whatever. Because like the other problem is having, if I want to see something different, I got to play through the whole section again.
Right.
And I was just tired of sitting through this crap. So, you know, to me, usually this the turkey thing is reserved for the game that I found both the least pleasant and the most disappointing, and this was probably not the worst thing I played all year, but it is the biggest waste of resources and time.
Appears. I have a question about the game. Do they tackle the whole topic of like sex with robots?
Not super directly. There is, or at least I didn't see it. If they did, maybe there's a branch that gets into that more, but there is definitely an implication that they make sex androids for sure.
To me, that seems like the less sensitive yet still interesting angle that they could have taken instead of the parallels to like civil rights and Martin Luther King.
Well, they're still in like kind of crazy, creepy territory there, because at some point, if you focus on that, you got to show someone raping an android, and that's not a thing you need to see on screen. To Cage's credit, this game is probably the least creepy and offensive to the female characters game he's made. There's no gratuitous shower scene. There's no scene where you basically have to fend off attackers as a woman in a desperate situation. So he at least resisted that temptation. That's progress.
But yeah. I just feel like that could have been a very deep angle for the story to go in. Like,
well, except Ex Machina already did that to a large degree. You know, the idea of that movie already kind of tackled the whole what is love android thing in a way that, like, I don't think you're gonna top.
No, definitely David Cage isn't gonna top it. But I'm not even talking about the emotional angle of it. I'm talking about like the moral angle of it. Like, you know, having like maybe a couple where the guy's married, but they also have this android that's like walking around. Like, I feel like there's something that could be explored there that
maybe, but it wouldn't have been any less artless than what we got.
Yeah, probably right. All right, well,
it all just plays out like a third-rate after-school special, and it's embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
Like, especially
this section of
good old Todd, who couldn't be more of a stereotype abusive father,
right?
You know, loser guy. If you try,
Where's the empty beer cans?
Yeah, I cleaned those up already. That's where they are. They're in the trash. And now he throws the take the shirt off. You got a wife beater under there somewhere. I know.
All right, my turkey for 2018 is not a game. It's not a person.
Shane's turkeys are always loftier than mine. Mine are always just like, ah!
I don't know about lofty.
Hate thing.
My turkey is a company. And I bet you if I gave you 3 seconds, you'd be able to guess what company that is. It is Sony. Sony is my turkey for 2018. Leaving E3, it was just kind of the icing on the cake. I think what in general led me to call Sony my turkey for 2018 is its arrogance, how it never learned any lessons from the PlayStation 3 era, and it has just gone full circle back to this, okay, we're winning now, and now we can do what we want and not consider anyone else, in all honesty. Not consider our fans, not consider the partners that rely on us. It's just gone into full-on, we're winning again, we have all the leverage, we can do what we want, you're going to take it, you're going to like it, period.
Happens a lot.
With Sony, it happens.
It happens with all three of them. I mean, look at the reaction Nintendo had to the Wii, and they kind of hit that point where they're like, we have more money than God. Here's a bunch of stuff you don't care about for their E3 conferences for 3 years, and then they put out the Wii U.
But it wasn't overt like this is.
Oh,
though.
it was overt
like,
for the time,
I mean,
sure. And
Sony is like blocking cross-platform play and then making up
made
excuses for why it wouldn't do it.
Okay, Microsoft made a console that couldn't play games well. Like, I mean, the Xbox. You know, every time these companies have a successful generation, they have some kind of horrible, weird moment where they're like, oh, we don't need to do anything special here. We just need to do this crazy thing. And you know, that happened to Sony moving from the 2 to the PlayStation 3. It happened to Microsoft moving from the 360 to the 1. It happened to Nintendo moving from the Wii to the Wii U. It's weird that like not only did they not remember, Sony's the first one I think to repeat it.
Right.
Because it's sort
of
not
even that 5 years later.
Yeah. So because it's like the thing where it's like, well, they don't seem to learn from each other. They seem to think that they're immune to the failures of the other companies.
Well, Sony doesn't even learn from itself.
But Sony's the first one to kind of circle back around and realize, oh, we're going to do this. I mean, we'll see how far they push this, but because I don't think the problem in the transition of the PlayStation 3 was we don't need anyone else. We don't need to think about anyone else. It was like, we're awesome and we come up with better things than everybody else. And like, Ken Kutaragi is a crazy man that we're just going to give free reign to do all this weird stuff. Sony's issues right now seem to be that everybody's sort of adjusting to the new landscape of media and marketing and everything. And Sony's starting to make some weird strides in terms of like, this is how we're going to deal with it. And everyone's I don't think that's really the way you want to go, especially with the crossplay thing. The crossplay thing was a bad look for so long.
I mean, they're being isolationists. They're basically saying, we don't need anyone else. We don't need anything else. That's just not how it works.
And they're giving the other two such fodder to take pot shots at them. Even Nintendo is playing that game with you, you fucked up.
I did not think I would see this Sony again. And I didn't, even like the first 2-3 years of the PlayStation 4, I didn't think I'd see it again.
Well, they weren't doing that.
Because it was still in the mode of, oh God, thank you. Our fans came back. Like, who knows? I mean, who knew what was going to happen?
Yeah, and I think that might have not have played out the way it did if Microsoft had come out of the gate with a stronger piece of hardware.
Absolutely. Yeah, it had no competition, really.
Yeah.
It was over as soon as it began.
Yeah, early on, I mean, they certainly kept the momentum going. I got to give Sony credit for that. But early on in this generation, PlayStation 4 didn't win. Xbox One lost.
No, you're right. I mean, you think about the launch lineup for PS4.
Yeah. I mean, Resogun was fun, but
Yeah, Resogun's cool and all, but
somewhere out there's a bunch of people that paid $60 for that Killzone game that are like, damn it.
and right now there's someone in the chat saying, I like Killzone.
I love Killzone Shadowfall. It's like,
But to me, this was the year where Sony knew it was over. It knew it had won. There was no coming back. It even knew it. Even this year, it knew that Switch was not going to be a thing.
Yeah, I think that might have been
That was the final.
what flipped the switch, if you will. When it's clear that Switch, while successful, is not going to sell 100 million units.
Right.
Like they are not going to
the
overtake
writing's
the
on
PS4.
the wall now. Yeah, it's not another Wii.
Yeah.
Sony can look. Sony gets the MPDs. Once it started seeing, okay, the holidays are over, and they sold what 80,000 consoles in January. Like, okay, it's over.
Yeah.
And it seemed like once that happened, that was it. Sony went right back into arrogance and taking fans and the industry for granted.
But you got to wonder, like, in terms of, they've done this before, and Microsoft has seen the weak spot before. And I'm interested to see if going forward into E3 with no Sony, what does Microsoft do?
Yeah.
Because Microsoft, for all their faults, have always found ways to capitalize on Sony's missteps.
Absolutely.
So that'll be very interesting.
To be fair, I mean, we talked about it like a couple episodes ago. Microsoft has kind of figured it out.
Yeah, they got some momentum, which I didn't
heading
think they
in the right
maybe
trajectory
could.
right
I
now.
thought they were going to have to wait till next gen to get any kind of momentum going again, but it feels like the X has turned some stuff around for them in a way,
It's
which
not even
surprises
just the X,
me.
though, really. I mean, that helps, but it's just part of it. It's just the dedication to buying studios to create exclusive content, the stuff that it's done with Play Anywhere, allowing cross-play, like, right out of the gate. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, they're making the moves, and even if none of it works, you're not going to be able to look back and say that Microsoft didn't try.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I...
And for a long time, I feel like it felt like they weren't trying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think
They were checked
that,
out.
like...
They were canceling projects with no explanation. They were not replacing those projects with new announcements.
Yeah.
I
don't think that the Xbox One originally was like a big FU or Microsoft being arrogant. I just really think that Microsoft thought that was what was going to be a hit. I think it thought that was going to be the future. And I think we're kind of seeing that it was like 5 years ahead of the game.
A little bit. I mean, but as we know, as any Sega fan knows, being that far ahead of the game doesn't do you any favors.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, we've naturally transitioned into our next topic, which is Microsoft is putting out a new console next year.
Is that confirmed? That's really...
It's not 100% confirmed.
But it's one of those rumors where you're like, oh, that looks pretty...
I would give it 85 to 90% chance of being legit. So the word on the street is that Microsoft is preparing a new console for 2019. It's not a new console as far as hardware is concerned. It just does not have a disk drive, which was kind of the plan from
originally,
the beginning.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder if this is them just now putting into production what was supposed to be in production from the beginning.
Maybe I don't think they were not going to have a disk drive in the original plan because you weren't.
Not two different versions, you don't think?
I don't think so. You weren't at the position where I think you could cut the retail out of the loop like that yet. I think you are now. I think that has shifted tremendously. The digital sales thing, just gained and gained and gained and gained. And I think you are finally kind of at a point where you can start to test the water with consoles that don't need Walmart. And because that was the scary part, was like for a long time was like, well, if
you're not going to sell software.
That's the leverage of the ESRB, was like if you rated AO, you don't get sold in Walmart, which means you don't get sold.
Yep.
But that is not necessarily a thing anymore. You're starting to see, less concern about pissing off the brick and mortar retailers and more confidence in their ability to sell stuff in a digital store.
Absolutely.
Even Steam's getting in on the porn now. I mean, it's that whole thing is
AO
shifting.
games go up on Steam.
Yeah.
Well, I think in general, not just in America, but worldwide, I think society is just kind of loosening up to a lot of stuff like that.
Some degree. We're cool with video game porn, but we keep electing fascists. But it's a balance.
You can't have both, Matt. So what do you think is going to be the result of this console? What do you think it's going to do? Is it going to do well in the market? Do you think people are just going to ignore it? Because it's cheap. It's like they're saying it's like $200.
I don't know. I mean, I think you're still in the position where is it a regular Xbox One S?
Yeah, it's a One S.
So
yeah.
So you take away the reason I bought the X, which was for the 4K disc player. I don't know. I feel like that hinges very strongly on what their lineup is going to be, and like we don't know a lot of that because they've just bought all these companies, and we don't know what these new companies that the developers they bought are going to make. Because I would say right now, and we said it again talking to Sam before the show about his PlayStation 4 purchase, if you're going to only buy one of them, I think PlayStation 4 is
absolutely.
is the option.
No question. I don't mean to offend anybody who's an Xbox fan, but if you're looking at things from an objective standpoint,
I play the majority of my stuff on Xbox now because they perform better on the Xbox One X. But if you said I could only keep one of them, I'm keeping the PlayStation because it's got the best exclusive lineup.
Yeah.
I can play everything on the Xbox One X for the most part on PC if I have to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think PlayStation 4 is still the go-to in terms of lineup, the best lineup you can't get anywhere else. So in terms of enticing someone over, if it's just an S with no disk drive, I mean the lower price is nice, but it doesn't have the performance advantage, and it doesn't have the 4K disc advantage. I don't know. I would say kind of who's that for, but I guess the X is selling better than they thought anyways, and we kind of had that same question about the X.
Yeah.
Like I said, they have access to the data. They must know something.
Would you buy it?
No, because I don't need it.
No, I'm saying if you were in the market for a console, would you buy
the
disc drive free version for cheaper?
I would buy an X with no disk drive for cheaper, probably.
Just for the hardware.
Yeah, for the hardware, the performance improvements. Yeah. Like the idea of not having a disk drive does not scare me, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I buy tons of stuff digital. The only stuff I still actually buy physical is actually Switch stuff.
Yeah.
Because I figure if I decide I don't want that later, it holds its
Nintendo
value.
stuff holds its value big time.
Yeah.
Because they never discount it.
Whereas, like, if I got a physical copy of Just Cause 3, what am I going to be able to trade that in for $2 in a year or two? Like, who cares?
If you're lucky. Yeah.
Like,
they're not worth really anything.
So, like, yeah, I do. And digital stuff is always cheaper. Like, you can get the full, here's the full set of this with all the DLC for $9. Like, great. I have tons of that stuff. So, yeah. If you take out the disk drive and give me a bigger hard drive, yeah, that's a pretty good deal to me.
Okay, so I would agree. I would be open to buying a disc-free
open
console.
would be the right word, yeah.
But what is the purpose of this from Microsoft's perspective? We're open to it, but it's not like we're excited or...
To get you used to it.
So it's just, you don't think that Microsoft even cares if it sells? It's just that it's out there and people are like, oh, there's already been a console that didn't have a drive?
I think you might be looking at the PR... You're testing the water to see how people react to this thing, and that might determine whether there's a disk drive in the next Xbox or not.
Do you think there will be a disk drive in the next Xbox?
I don't think they want one.
I definitely think they don't want one.
But I think they might feel like, depending on the reaction to this, they might feel they have. Because this to me strikes me as a test firing of something. Because if there's one thing Nintendo, if there's one thing Microsoft knows they don't want, it's a repeat of the reveal of the Xbox One. They want to know.
I felt like the reveal of Xbox One was like the litmus test. And it failed miserably.
Sort of, but like what I'm saying is they have these ideas for this next system, and I think they're going to be much more cautious about how they introduce it to the public sphere. And I think this is part of that. They want to know if they can get away with an all-digital future. But they're not going to try that with their brand new, crazy, super expensive system. They're going to see how people react to a revision of an existing system, and whether it makes a splash, whether people freak out, whether this is a canary in a coal mine to me.
I mean, it seemed to me what angered people most with the initial announcement of Xbox One was that you're not going to be able to share games and there were not going to be used games.
Right.
But I feel like in the last 5 or 6 years, people have kind of...
Well, if you're buying digital, that's what you've accepted.
I mean, I feel like in 5 or 6 years, people have kind of completely come around to the idea of, okay, I'm going to buy a game, but I can't trade it in. I can't sell it.
But that's in part they've come around on that in part because the deep discounts you can get from digital sales are beyond a lot of times what you can get from retail.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the retail versus, sometimes I would find crazy deals when like, oh, we found this thing in the bargain bin at Target, and like I bought this game for $9.99 or whatever, and it used to be $60, and like that's cool. But the thing about the digital sales that have that same kind of deep discount is they don't run out of them.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you're not at the mercy
Not
of did
supply
everybody
is-
find it in the bin.
Well, it's
already.
like, people don't go and stand in line for game releases
Right.
anymore because they're like, because I already preloaded the sucker 3 days ago. Like,
So I think if you're buying like maybe 3 or 4 through 5 full price releases on launch day over the course of the year, maybe you're still buying those physical. But I think people are buying a lot of cheap stuff later on digital. And if you pay $5 to $9 for something, are you caring that much about trading it in?
Yeah.
No, like it's a different thing. The economy of scale has changed, and that wasn't really in place for the console digital stores when this generation began. And I think that has changed enough that people might be more willing to accept it. The other thing that people hated about the Xbox One reveal was the idea that the discs didn't do anything. The discs
Right.
just unlocked
They
the
were just
ability to play the
keys.
game, and basically it became a coaster after
Right.
that. Like you couldn't use that disc for anything. You couldn't trade the disc in. You couldn't do anything. So that, of course, was a basically that was a consolation or a capitulation to the retail side of
absolutely.
things
Yeah.
because they couldn't yet cut out the brick and mortar retail idea.
Yeah.
I feel like in the same way that we're waiting for the first of these major console makers to walk away from E3. We're waiting for the first one to walk away from brick and mortar.
From retail. Yeah.
And Microsoft is just desperately wanting to do that. You could feel them wanting to do that for this whole
5
generation.
years, 6 years, yeah.
And so I think that's what this is. They're testing the water of will people, even in whatever ratio they think they're getting off of like a new system, of a new version of a revision of a system that's already been out there for a long time that most people are interested, already have. They're just gauging interest and gauging response. I mean, if people freak
And
out
they'll
about
have enough
this thing,
time. I mean, the timing is perfect.
Yeah.
Because if it comes out early next year, they'll have a good 18 months of data
Yep.
before they hit E3 the next year, if E3 even exists then.
If it becomes a thing where like people just revolt against the idea of a console with no disc drive,
Then they know.
they can slap one in to
Well,
their.
they know that even 6 years later, people still aren't down
Yep.
with it.
But that's the important thing is they find that out without ruining
Right.
the unveiling of their
Yep.
brand new,
Absolutely.
shiny new system.
Yep, it's like dipping your toe in the water before you dive in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How it'll turn out, I don't know.
Yeah.
I that's a hard thing to predict.
Look, I still, when I can, I still buy physical versions of games. I know I'm probably in the slight minority.
I really
in
don't.
2018.
In part
you think that's still the majority buy discs?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, I think it's shifted to closer to like a 50-50
I think
thing.
it's like 50-50 now, yeah.
I don't buy a lot of discs anymore. Usually if I buy a disc, it's because I'm unsure.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I need to trade this in for $40 because I don't like it very
Right,
much. But,
right.
But usually I'm
It
pretty
does
sure.
look. It does make you more willing to take risks as
Yeah.
well, knowing that okay, if I hate this game, I can still take it back and get like $40 for
Yeah,
it.
I
or
still
whatever.
have a thing that has some form of value that I can, get some kind of refund
And I wonder
for.
how much that plays into sales going forward if people no longer have that option.
Yeah, I mean that's a big deal because that's the thing is you are cutting out an entire second wave of players because you certainly used and it also used to be very valuable to used game shops, especially independent used game shops.
I mean, that's where they make all their
So
money.
where all the money comes from is people that can't afford to be in the first run. So when a new generation comes out, that previous generation becomes, there's a whole separate audience for all those old hardware.
Sam.
Yeah, here's Sam. Yeah.
Perfect example. Yeah.
And if you cut those people out of the loop, on one hand you're like, well, you're not serving those customers, but then you're like, well, those are all secondhand customers, and the console makers they're not making money off of them.
Yeah.
Only the stores are making money off them.
But they are ultimately, because if, say, Sam gets his Spider-Man game and he loves Spider-Man, if Insomniac puts out a sequel to that, he might pick it up.
Yeah.
You have to be exposed to stuff first before you can get hooked on it. And look, one thing I will say that's been a great boon and a great change to how things work is the increase in public betas, live demos. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. If Fallout 76's beta were open to the public, it would have been a disaster. So I remember when I was talking about the beta, I'm like, I'm really surprised they didn't kind of give this. Now I know why
Not
they
anymore,
didn't open
yeah.
up to everybody. So it's a double-edged sword. It could be something that's good. It can be something that's bad. But I'm not ready to go for a disc-free console yet. When they do launch their next console, if they offer a version with a drive and a version without a drive, I will pay a little extra money to have the version with the drive. In 2 years from now, I may be that may be 30% of gamers. Right now it's 50-50. It could be 70-30 by the time we get there with digital. I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't even offer a version with the drive. Like, it's not that far-fetched.
It's not crazy. I feel like because of the ground they need to make up, they would probably want to offer both.
Yeah.
Maybe charge a chunk less for the one with no.
Now, how much more would I pay for the version with the drive? Max $50.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, what makes sense to me is $25. But if it was $50 more,
it would be 50. I think.
I honestly think it might be $100.
It could be $100. That's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if the disc-free version's $300 and the drive version's $400.
It depends how much Microsoft really wants you to have that discless one.
Right. Yeah.
The other question is, like, if you want to make up, if you don't want to have that be such a separate thing, put a bigger hard drive in the one with no disc.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to do that anyway because of what you're implying.
Oh, you do.
You know?
Yeah, you could offset the cost that way and make them the same, but. Even when if you have a console with a drive, you want as big a hard drive as possible.
Yeah, because you're installing the whole thing one way or the other.
Because the disc doesn't really matter anymore.
But that would be like my play on that would probably be, especially in terms of a second round of testing the water. It would be very interesting to put out both versions, one with the drive and without the drive, and the one without the drive just has a much bigger hard drive, same price. See how many people buy each one.
Interesting experiment.
Yeah, I mean, the concern, of course, is you end up with retail stores with one version or the other shelf warming for forever.
Yeah.
But it at least tells you where you are.
Which do you think Nintendo? I think of all the platform holders, Nintendo would love to go to like a game-free console more than anyone.
You mean without like
people
media?
being able to like share games with their friends or whatever? I could see Nintendo being the platform holder that would most like to see a disc or media-free platform.
Maybe. I mean, they are running into the problem of how much those storage solutions cost for the cartridges.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just such a hard call to make when your audience is so much more youth skewing in the sense that a lot of kids don't have access to that.
A lot of parents would probably prefer that Nintendo get rid of cards and.
I don't know about that. Like,
why? Because it's just something
they don't want
their
their
kids lose.
Well, no, they don't. Kids don't lose that. They don't lose the games that they had to work hard for or wait for all the time. I've never heard of that outside of like leaving the DS somewhere, dropping it out of a car window or some whatever stupid thing the kid was doing.
I lost stuff all the time that I loved. Looking back across my childhood, I'm like, whatever happened to that awesome thing that I had when I was 9? Like, I could just go back to my whole life and think about things that I used to have that I no longer have, and I have no idea where they are. It's like my left sock. Like,
I never lost a game cartridge in my life.
Really?
Never.
Oh, I lost tons of stuff, man.
I lost GoldenEye for a while, but I found it when I moved.
Oh, yeah?
No, I've never.
Wow. I have.
Never. Like, because I couldn't replace that. I couldn't replace a $50 game.
Oh, I couldn't either. It didn't matter, though. I was a kid, and I was dumb. I did stupid
I kept track
stuff.
of that shit. I can tell you where just about everything I ever owned still is.
Wow.
I mean, not the stuff I got rid of. Obviously, it's off somewhere in Goodwill. But, like, no, I never did that.
I've lost tons of stuff.
I think kids keep track of the valuable stuff. My niece has tons of Switch games. She's never lost one. Never lost a DS game. Like,
wow.
It's... if it's your primary form of entertainment, you're going to keep track of it. I think parents in general prefer the kids having physical media to letting them have some kind of like unsupervised online thing, like the.
Hell, I went through
especially with a credit card attached to it. You know?
I went through my DS collection not long ago, and I had tons of game boxes with no card in them. No idea where the games went, where they ended up.
Yeah.
Could have taken them to work and used them for capture, and somebody took it home and put it in their system to play. Like, I don't know. Stuff just goes. Like, I don't know where it ends.
You've seen my office. Everything in there goes back
very
to the 90s.
Organized. Yeah. I don't think everyone's exactly like you, though.
No, but I feel like people keep track of their $30 to $60 purchases pretty carefully when it comes down to it. I would like to think so.
Yeah. All right, we got to move on.
They're just throwing money out the window.
Yeah.
But I think I could see Nintendo going for that eventually, but like, I mean, but then like you never know because you look at the PSP Go. Apparently people were not ready for that one.
I have it. I have the PSP Go. People hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah. but I liked it. It was a good kit of hardware.
I mean,
it just had no drive.
Yeah. In a couple of definitions.
Yeah.
It was certainly better than the what was it? What were they called?
The what?
The discs for the PSP? UMDs. It was certainly better than using those, because I mean, I still remember holding the PSP and I was like...
You can hear it and feel it.
Yeah, it was just like...
Yeah. It is funny to think about a handheld with like a moving disc drive.
Yeah, they're a weird little anomaly. It's
Only
like a little,
Sony.
weird little glitch in the matrix over the course of...
I have tons of UMDs. Like, for whatever reason, I ended up getting like tons of like anime sent to me and like all kinds of crazies. I literally have a Ziploc bag this big that's this fat with UMDs.
I have a beta version, or like a preview version of something, like one of those. Oh, it's Guitaru Man.
Yeah.
It's like an
I have
early
tons
version
of like unproduced game. Like, yeah. Anyway, we got to move on. We got to talk about Pokemon now, man. I think this might be a case where I ended up being right about Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee. We were kind of confused, I think, about what the game was. We knew that it was like a rough remake of Pokemon Yellow, which was a remake of Pokemon Red and Blue.
which was a remake of Red and Green.
Right. And so, yeah, this game has been on down through the ages. But I think, at least I was under the impression that it was a lot more different from those games than it ultimately ended up being. Because I thought that the Pokemon Go stuff was way more prevalent and played way more into kind of the base functionality of the game. But now that I've played it, it really, to me, is just Pokemon Yellow.
I wouldn't go that far. It is very much my first Pokemon.
Yeah.
Not just in the sense that Red and Blue were the first Pokemon of many people, but it's. I think it's a very easy thing to get into. It's easy on the eyes. It's charming. It's very pleasant to play.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Like it's so easy.
It is easy.
But it's a pleasant romp through the Pokemon world. And if you've been only exposed in recent years to Pokemon through Pokemon Go, I feel
There's
like
a lot of people
I feel like
that.
this will ease you in very nicely.
Yeah.
I think it's designed to be that way.
Yeah.
The irony is that trying to get Pokemon Go to talk to this game is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Both in
convoluted.
terms of getting the Bluetooth stuff to work with itself, and in terms of like there's a park about 15 hours into the game you get to where you can transfer Pokemon from Go into Let's Go. And it's handy because there's like there's Pokemon in where like anyone who's played this game in the past knows like there's a point early on where you have to pick between two different fossils.
Yep.
And one of the fossils in the originals, you got one fossil, and the other one you would have to basically trade someone for, the other Pokemon. But in this, if you've caught one of those Pokemon, the Pokemon you didn't pick the fossil for in Pokemon Go, you just transfer it in, go in, catch it in the Pokemon Go park, and you're done.
Yeah.
Like no trading required. The problem is that the instructions for doing that are incredibly convoluted, and Pokemon Let's Go doesn't help you at all.
Yeah.
To find the correct order of things you have to do, you actually have to look in like the little tutorial thing in Pokemon Go's settings section that kind of explains, you can't just connect them, because like Pokemon Let's Go indicates you just connect them, and it'll just sit there and spin forever.
Yeah.
What you have to do is you have to go into your Pokemon list in Let's Go, poke the switch button in the corner, highlight all the Pokemon you want to transfer, and then hit yes like 3 times, where it's like, are you sure? Because if something happens, they're all going to be destroyed. And you're like, okay, I hope the Switch is on. And then you load up the thing on the Switch for the Switch game, and it'll do it and do the thing. And it'll give you the exclusive Pokemon in Let's Go, which you could then raise and then transfer into. In Pokemon Go, you get the exclusive Melton, or whatever it's called, Pokemon for doing that trade. And then once you can trade that into Pokemon Let's Go. So he's actually 152.
So if you're like me
Pokemon.
and you played Pokemon Go sparingly, you can play this game, load up on Pokemon, and transfer them all into Go.
I don't think you can transfer them to Go.
Oh, you can't?
I think you can only so far I've only found you can transfer from Go to this.
Oh,
to
really?
If you can transfer from Let's Go into Go, I have not found a way to do it.
Interesting. Just a one-way street.
Yeah. Which is fine for me, because I have tons of Pokemon I captured in Go that I don't use for anything, so I just transferred a ton of them in. And you can play, like, if you get, like, over 25 in a Pokemon Go park, in the Switch game, you can play like a Pokemon herding game, which I haven't done that yet, but they keep telling me I could go herd Pokemon. I'm just like, well, that sounds like a great time. So yeah, the connectivity is awkward. And then like the funny thing is, that's happened when you were here. Actually, I finally got it to work, and then as I was leaving the town it's in, Jesse and James, their Team Rocket villains, were down there, and they literally say, there's a park up there where you can connect to Pokemon Go, but it's all confusing, and there's apps and connectivity, and I just ran away. And I was like, wow, somebody knew that was garbage.
Very self-aware.
So that was weird. Other than that, for the most part, I actually really like it.
Yeah, I really like it too. I mean, we can assume most of our audience has played Pokemon Red or Blue. And so let's just talk about what really are the differences. The big difference is that when you catch wild Pokemon, instead of battling them and whittling them down to like their last hit point before capturing them, you just capture them.
Yeah, well, actually, the big difference I would say is there's no random battles.
Yeah.
That's the biggest change, and the biggest thing that I think they should carry forward.
I've had random Pokemon just pop up.
Well, yeah, but you can see them before.
No, I haven't seen them before, and I've just been attacked.
That doesn't happen.
It did happen with the Pikachu. Absolutely, I have it on video.
What?
Yeah, a Pikachu, nothing on the screen, and just up pops a battle with the Pikachu, a wild Pikachu.
Well, that's not supposed to happen.
It did. It absolutely did.
Like you had to fight it?
Yeah. And I had to capture it.
But you didn't fight it?
No.
Okay. Well, so what happened there is probably it popped up, it spawned underneath your character.
So quickly that I never saw the avatar.
But you can see, there are no random battles in this game. It's you can see them walking around, on the overworld, and you walk into them to fight, or they pop up underneath you, or they run into you. That happens sometimes.
And they have
you don't have full control.
Around them.
There's a reason there's still repel items in the game, just to get these freaking monsters away.
Well, in the live stream I did of this game, like there was a certain point where I was just being bombarded by Pidgeys, and I was like, just get away, just go away, leave me alone.
So that's the biggest, to me, that's the biggest change, is that you have full control over when you engage with anything, either a trainer or a monster.
Yep. As long as you don't walk in the path of a trainer.
I would definitely love to see them adapt that into the mainline series.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason to keep doing the random battles in this. Because at least this way, there's a little more streamlining to it, and I like it.
It's not even just about streamlining. It's just about being able to prepare for the game and not just being randomly caught off guard. It's a cheap tactic to me, random battles, and there's a reason that most RPGs have got rid of them. But
even Dragon Quest XI, if Dragon Quest gets rid of them, you can get Pokemon.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But otherwise, this is just a pretty Pokemon Red and Blue.
Well, the other problem is the forced motion controls.
Yeah.
When you capture...
They're so bad.
When you don't fight the Pokemon to capture them, but what you do is you play basically the exact same little mini game that you play in Pokemon Go.
Yep.
And
to toss a Pokeball.
You have to toss a Pokeball
butter
physically.
them up with candy first.
Yeah, if you want. And like different items do that. But like basically you'll see it's the same thing. There's the ring and the colored ring that contracts around them.
Yep.
And it's different colors, and the color of the ring indicates how difficult it is going to be to capture them. And the problem here is if you're playing it handheld, you can either use the gyro to aim, or you can use the left stick to aim, and then you press the button to throw the ball.
Yep.
If you are playing docked, you have to use motion controls.
Yep.
And bite me. Because holy crap, this doesn't work right.
I just don't understand. Like, that whole part of the game I don't get.
You
it's
can't
like
play...
Sometimes I can, like, change my orientation to face a Pokemon. Sometimes I can't.
It's very weird. Like, the basic premise is that, because, like, to throw each ball... you have to select "Get Ready" on the menu,
which is annoying.
But the point is the reason that is the way it is because when you select "Get Ready," it basically zeroes the controller. So however you're holding the controller when you press that button, that's what it's taking as neutral. It's expecting you to have the controller pointed at the screen.
Right.
So that's like how you kind of
flip it up,
align and you flip it up, and sometimes it just dribbles out. Sometimes it flies to the left or the right. When you try to throw it to the left or right, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Like it's just the same. And like
the good news is though that you get so many balls.
Yeah, there's no shortage of balls.
I have like 150 Pokeballs.
It's I'm up to the 200 range somewhere in the normal ones.
It's just ridiculous.
I mean, it's
like you beat a trainer and you get like 5,
and you don't get like it's not like the old game where like certain, the high level balls were like, oh, you better only save it.
Right.
Like by the time I had to use my first Ultra Ball, I had like 60 of them, and I never bought them. Like you never have to buy like. They keep talking to me. It's the same dialogue a lot of times in the original Game Boy game, but it's like, oh, don't forget to stock up on No, fuck that.
No, I
like
really
you
don't
never
need
need to
them.
buy Pokeballs
You don't.
ever.
Yeah.
So it's freer. It's freer. Just like it just rains balls down on you at all times, so you don't have to.
It rains great balls.
But there's a point at which when I'm trying to do the stupid motion control thing, and I'm wasting like 10 balls on this damn thing.
Yeah.
And there's like even a skill element where like if you hit the ball on the nose of the Pokemon, like kind of in the middle of the two rings, and especially when the colored ring is smaller, you get either a great or an excellent or a nice. Nice is the weakest.
Yeah.
But if I hit an excellent, like right in the middle of that ball, right in the middle of that ring, that fucker should be captured.
Yeah, you're right.
Like there's an element of like,
even if I'm using a like generic Pokeball, like it should just be captured. Yeah.
if you're gonna make this into like some kind of stupid human tricks thing.
Well, there's no rhyme or reason to whether you capture them or not. It's just a crapshoot, really.
Well, it's randomized. It's like you have a whatever percentage, a hidden
You can
percentage.
do it perfectly with a powerful ball, and it'll still break out.
And it's like, to me, if you're gonna add like this kind of skill-based throw element, you gotta reward that, and I think it does up the percentage.
It does,
chance.
yeah.
But if you get if you nail an excellent with an Ultra Ball, just give it to me.
Yeah, man. Like
you
you just hand it to you.
But like if I could just play, like, it doesn't have Pro Controller support. You have to play with either one Joy-Con.
One Joy-Con.
Which is weird.
Because if you play it handheld, you can use both Joy-Cons, and you can move with the stick on the left one, and then use the buttons on the right. You cannot use two Joy-Cons to play it when it's docked.
Because the other Joy-Con is used for second player.
Yeah, so you have to take your thumb off the stick and hit a button.
Yep.
You can't do both at the same time. It's really weird.
And so there's three options when you're in docked mode. You can use the left Joy-Con, the right Joy-Con, or the Pokeball Plus.
Yeah. And you did get the Pokeball Plus.
I did get the one of the Pokeball Plus. The Pokeball Plus sucks.
Yeah. So don't spend the extra money for
Well, do it if you want Mew.
Ah.
Because Mew comes in.
You can probably get him eventually anyway.
I don't know. I haven't run into one yet, but it's been useful. Having a psychic Pokemon that early
helps
is good.
a lot. Absolutely.
But I tried it for like 5 to 10 minutes, and after the first few throws, I'm like, well, part of it is because it's too small for my hand. I mean, it's not made for my hand. It's made for a kid. Obviously, it's if I had a hand half my size, it probably would work pretty well.
Because it is small.
It is very small.
Yeah.
My hand
it's
just
like the size of like a pool ball, I guess. Really.
Oh, way smaller.
Maybe smaller than that. A racquetball.
Racquetball, yeah. It's closer to that. It's very small. It's so to me, it's more useful as okay, I got Mew. And you can still do the thing where you put a Pokemon in it and walk around with it. That's cool. And it still works as a Pokemon Go Plus thing for like instant capturing if you pair it.
Yeah.
Which is also a problem because of the Bluetooth problems.
Yeah. Well, that's Bluetooth.
That's Bluetooth being Bluetooth, sure. So yeah, that stuff is annoying. I wish they would just patch in the ability to use a Pro Controller in the same way you play the game handheld mode. Like if you're not gonna make me do the stupid motion control stuff handheld mode, why don't you let me do that when I play it docked? Because I don't want to play it handheld. I want to play it docked.
Yeah.
It also causes a problem where, like, if you have any kind of motor dysfunction, any kind of handicap in that regard whatsoever, you're not gonna be able to play this game properly.
No, that's a good point.
Which is like, why are you gatekeeping Pokemon from people who can't move?
Because typically
properly?
it's a franchise where if people do have disabilities, they can play it just fine.
Exactly.
Just fine. I agree. The controls in the game are goofy. I actually have preferred to play this handheld.
I can see that. I just
with
can't.
With the TV on, I just sit on the couch because you can just let it sit there because it's all turn-based. Like, I'll put it down, watch TV for 20 minutes, pick it up, play the game for 10 minutes.
But the other thing is, like, for the most part, outside of some pretty awful shadows, I think it looks good on the TV.
It does look good.
It's nice and clean, and it's bouncy and attractive.
There's the shadows for you.
Yeah, shadows are awful. But like the animation's nice. It's nice to see all the moves.
Frame rate dips here and there too, which is really bad because it's drawing like 50 polygons.
Wow, that is bad.
Yeah.
I don't think mine's doing that.
Yeah. My frame rate has dipped a ton.
Are you capturing this off docked?
Docked, yeah.
Wow.
I don't even know how to capture.
That looks like way worse than mine. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. But I love this game. I think it's great. I honestly, if they made every Pokemon game like this going forward, I'd be 100% fine with it.
I don't think I'd go that far, but I do think if they want to turn this into like the side series that kind of parallels the main series, and years we don't get a main series game or an update of that game, like you get one of these, totally on board.
What do you think is missing that you would want in that other mainline thing that you're talking about?
Well, it's hard to say because I'm not actually a huge hardcore Pokemon fan, but I do know that the hardcore hates this game.
But why?
Because it is still...
It's like the best Pokemon game ever.
It is still dumb. Well, partly is because there is a contingent of younger Pokemon fans that think everything is too geared towards Gen 1. And
they don't like Gen 1
they need to let go of the Gen 1 thing. I mean, I get that to some degree. I am not a Gen 1 purist, really. But although once you get past Gen 3, I'm kind of checked out.
Yeah.
I don't remember what anybody's name is after Gen 3.
Yeah.
Although my favorite Pokemon game is probably Black and White.
It's really good.
Because it has the best story. You're kind of up against like this...
That was one thing I was going to say. You're
really, up against PETA in Black and White, and I kind of dig that.
You don't really think that the story has evolved much in Pokemon until you play this.
Yeah, it's definitely...
And after playing like Sun and Moon, like you really see how...
Yeah, even incorporating kind of the because this is a remake of Yellow, where they incorporated the cartoon element of Jesse and James and the whole Team Rocket thing being more pronounced and stuff. But yeah, it's but it is a nice throwback. Like, I mean, I played Pokemon Red and Blue. I was in my 20s when Red and Blue came out. It's not like it's not like it defined my childhood or anything, but I did enjoy it, and I do enjoy going back to it and playing it and seeing everything kind of look better and be done in this like full 3D thing. It's cool. Like I like it. It's a nice
definitely
thing.
Without a doubt the best 3D Pokemon game ever.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Well, you mean like graphically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the detail that Sun and Moon is going for in places, but it doesn't have the fidelity that this does.
But you do realize that the story back in the first couple Pokemons were very simple.
Yeah, well.
Definitely
You remember that, like...
Even Black and White had some innuendo here and there that, like, adults could, like, kind of wink and nod to.
Yeah, but also remember that, like, it's only very recently that Nintendo even really started putting any kind of effort into their stories.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
that's true.
Nintendo has always kind of leaned on that whole, like, it should be fun to play without the story thing, and they've sort of, for a long time, Aonuma's basically been sneaking story into Zelda.
Right.
Like the timeline of the Zelda games is a secret from Miyamoto for a while, because Miyamoto didn't think they should have continuity.
Well, it also doesn't make a lick of sense, so...
Right. But, like, outside of, like, the Fire Emblems, like, there's not a whole lot of story work going on at Nintendo. But like,
Pokemon has gotten a lot better in that regard over the years, and you really realize it when you go back and you play this one.
Yeah. But it's kind of charming in how simple it is in that regard.
I'm really loving it. I'm having a great time with it.
But I think that, like, Gen 8, you're going to see next year. Like, it's going to have all the new stuff. It's going to have a lot more. There's going to be Pokemon breeding, and there's going to be all these different... I mean, there's a lot of, like, of the later... enhancements here. There are shiny Pokemon.
Yep.
There's male and female Pokemon. Not that it seems to make any difference. Pokemon have various stats. Jim Sterling was talking about how he spent like 2 hours trying to catch an Ekans with a perfect stat lineup, which I'm like, man, it would never occur to me to spend my life doing that. But he wanted a shiny perfect Ekans and he got it. Yeah. More power to him. So there's a lot of stuff like that. It's
really good.
Yeah.
It's a great Pokemon game. I would honestly, if you like Pokemon, go buy this without hesitation.
I would say so. And then like or if you want to introduce someone to Pokemon, this is also really perfect for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there isn't one of the problems that the hardcore fan base has, which is it doesn't have the competitive scene happening here really in the same way that the handheld ones do.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the post game to the same level, but there are you do get a Pokemon master for every Pokemon that pop up in the end game that you can go fight against. So 150 or more to see.
Yeah. That's a lot.
If to be a Pokemon master is your destiny.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot to do. It's just sort of, it's not as like grindy and hardcore and granular as like the mainstream Pokemon. People are brigading this game. Like Amazon Japan had to shut down user reviews because the fans were downvoting it. So
you can just tell they didn't play it.
Yeah. Because for some reason everybody's terrified that this, like you said, they're afraid that this is what the mainline game is going to become. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. I still can't understand the differences between a mainline game and this.
Yeah, but that's like someone saying they don't understand the difference between like I don't know, like that stupid like game where the gods are fighting each other fighting game and Street Fighter. Like there's a difference between like
I don't think it's that stark.
it's not, but it's not that stark, but there is a difference. This is.
I'm still not sure though. I'm still not sure what the difference is between this game and a mainline Pokemon game.
Well, you're never.
You said there's not as much post-game content.
I'm not at the post game, so I don't know. But again, I don't play a lot of post game content.
I don't either. Like I finished the campaign and I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, but that's what like the hardcore fan base just has not engaged with this game in a weird way. And like
I think they should give it a chance.
I think they should too. But the guy who runs, see, mine doesn't look like that frame rate wise. It doesn't do that. I don't know what's happening there. That's weird.
Maybe it's the capture or something.
Maybe. But the guy who runs Cerebi.net, like the big huge Pokemon, he said on Reset Era that there has never been a Pokemon game, spin-off or mainline, that has had less engagement on his site than this game.
Does he hate it though?
No, he likes it, and he got
it.
death threats because he said he liked it.
Oh, okay.
Like
interesting.
It's like if you say you like it and you're part of kind of the Pokemon hardcore community, you kind of get pariahed a little bit,
Lord.
or have been. I don't know if they're
here's another example of where I cannot relate with modern.
I don't know if they're turning around on this or not. I think it's fun. I think it's fun.
It's great. If you're one of these people, you're listening to people like that, stop listening to them. You're going to love this game. If you like Pokemon, you're going to love Pokemon. Let's go. I
mean, the motion control stuff is annoying.
It is.
But like,
agreed.
If you really are having trouble, like just when, if you're trying to capture a particular difficult Pokemon, just switch to handheld briefly and do it that way.
I started playing docked. I needed to play it docked to grab footage for the show, but once I got the footage done, I just played it all handheld. Chilling on my couch, watching football, and
I still prefer it. I don't like playing stuff handheld with something as bulky as the Switch. I don't like that. And I've kind of gotten used to the one Joy-Con play.
Me too,
like it's okay because like the clicking the stick and pressing the A button are pretty much the same thing.
They are.
It's not that bad. It's just I get because sometimes I'll go through stretches where you're fighting because trainers you just fight like a normal RPG.
Yep.
And so I'll go through periods where I'm just going through like exploration or like doing a lot of trainer stuff or a dungeon or whatever, and I'm just sort of laying on the couch playing one-handed.
Yeah.
And then like
it's a very.
But then I get back to
but
then I get to the point where I have to capture some Pokemon. I gotta sit up and like little
Make sure it's
it's
That's great.
The motion controls just ruin everything.
Yeah, a lot of times they do. I like them in Splatoon. I like being able to fine-tune my aim with the gyro controls. But
you can do that on handheld, like with this. Like that's the one place it works.
Yeah.
It's like you can aim with that gyro
right.
and press the button to throw. Buttons. They've worked for decades. Why do we have to? It doesn't know where I'm throwing.
There's just
it never
no point.
knows.
There's no point.
I have not found a reliable way.
That's the one where they tried to make it more like Pokemon Go.
Right. They're like trying to make it familiar to people. But it's like, you know what? In Pokemon Go, you just flick the thing and it's fine. It goes the direction you flick your hand.
Actually, I haven't tried. Can you just use the touchscreen on the Switch to do that?
I don't know. I didn't try that.
I bet you can.
Maybe.
I bet you can. But why would you? When it's in a handheld, you can just use the button. So anyway.
Patch in Pro Controller support for docked mode. That would be my main request. But otherwise, I think it's great.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up from us. We're both really enjoying Pokemon Let's Go. Which version did you get?
Pikachu.
Me too.
That's actually that. If we're gonna nitpick, Pikachu and Eevee both get like their cartoon style voices, Pika Pika, like that whole thing. All the other Pokemon in the game sound like their old like Game Boy counterparts.
Yeah.
I think they could have put in the effort and made all the Pokemon sound like their cartoon counterparts, where they actually sound, they say their names or whatever. That would be the one thing I think I would like changed.
Yep. Otherwise, I'm loving it.
Otherwise,
I'm having a good time.
It's good. Like I played it for like 15, 20 hours. Like I don't sit down and play a Pokemon game that long unless I like it.
And if you played Red and Blue, then you know the game's about 25 hours long.
Yeah, and then you got the 150 whatever masters to play, and I'm sure that it is really easy. The game's really easy.
It is, yeah.
The only really hard
part...
It puts
up like hardly any resistance.
The only hard part is really the Elite Four.
Yeah.
And that's only hard because you have to do all 4 of them in a row without a break, which is tradition. That's just how it goes.
There's a couple gauntlets in the game where your Pokemon start to get a little thin. Like it's basically like hedge mazes where they make you fight like 20 trainers in a row or whatever.
But you can always just turn around and go back to your Pokemon Center and then come back and everything's still done.
Yeah.
The Elite Four are not like that. It's like one go or nothing.
You got to do it, which is the way it's always been. So
it's not like a super pushover to completely finish it, but the walk there is pretty leisurely.
Yep.
Especially because you can get the
Sometimes it's a little confusing too because the map isn't really a map. It's just like this basic like block layout of the world.
Yeah, but you're used to that if you play these games.
You are, but there's like one ways like where if you jump down off the ledge, you can't just go back up the ledge. You have to find your like all the way around. It's Pokemon.
Yeah,
it's always been that way.
And I do like that they streamline the necessary special moves. Yeah. So like you know like cut and surf and fly are all fly is just part of Pokemon who can fly if you take because you always have Pikachu or Eevee out of the ball, but if you take one of the other Pokemon out of the ball, like say like I have Charizard and it can fly, so I just ride him around. You fly over everything, like you fly over the paths and you don't have to fight anybody, and it's like it's great. You move much faster. It's great. But Pikachu gets, well, I'm sure in Eevee, they get like the special moves like cut and the stuff you need to use to progress. You know, cut and push and surf and fast travel is a fast travel ability, and so you don't have to use up move slots like you used to have to teach individual Pokemon. You had to basically like take a Pokemon and then like
if you have it, you just have it.
Yeah, I'd take some Pokemon and be like, okay, you're basically my progress bitch.
Right. You're gonna have all the TMs.
You're never gonna fight. Yeah. You're just gonna have all the stupid things I need to do to get through shit.
Yeah.
And now that's all kind of a separate thing, which I like.
Absolutely.
I think it makes the game less annoying, and it also removes the distinct possibility of some of the old games had, where if you accidentally got rid of or had a problem with a particular Pokemon, and they were the only one that could do that move, you were stuck.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You get trapped on islands and
you're stuck. Yeah, absolutely stuck. Yeah.
I do wish when you cut down bushes in this game, they stayed cut down.
Yeah,
that kind of
annoying. Yeah, it's really annoying.
I don't know if there's a reason for that, but I find that
irritating. I haven't figured out a reason for it yet.
No, just let me walk through there.
Once they're gone, they should be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we're nitpicking.
That's definitely nitpicking.
Yeah, game is really fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's faithful conversion. I love it. So that's 2 thumbs up from us.
It would be a lot of fun to play on Christmas morning.
Yeah, absolutely. All day long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see that, being a kid and being like, holy crap, I got the Pokemans. And then just taking it over to Grandma's house. And that's where the portability
Or hell, if Dad gets one and you get the other one, and you both play together.
They cool dads like us.
Just fighting over who gets Pikachu.
Yeah, exactly.
The kid's like, why do you care so much about Pikachu? It's like,
don't worry about it, kid.
Don't worry about it, kid. It was a 90s thing.
All right, it is time to move on to the grand finale of episode 149, and that is where we pick the winner of the Sifted T-shirt photo competition. So before we get started, we have 10 finalists that we're going to be grading, and Matt and I are going to essentially look at each photo, make a couple comments about it, and then we're both going to score it on a scale of 1 to 10. And I can't see what he scores it. He can't see what I score each photo. And then once we get through all 10, we're going to add up the scores, and whichever photo has the highest aggregate score will win the competition. And then that person gets a free game of their choice. So
do we have pens for this?
I just realized that, I'm going to have to unplug. So turn me down, Sam, so I can unplug and get pens. You're up.
While he's gone, let me ask one of the someone in the comments of this episode. Can you, if someone's a bigger and more detailed Pokemon fan than I am, can you explain to Shane why Let's Go is not the same as the mainline games?
Please do, yeah.
Like give him some kind of like bullet point list of like why I'm not wrong. Because I can't fully explain it properly, but I know that it's not the same because I've read so much forum complaining about it, but I haven't retained enough of it to make a valid argument about it. So some Pokemon hardcore dude, step in and tell us why Let's Go is not acceptable as a mainline game.
All right. So here it is, the moment of truth. Like I said, we have 10 different photos, and you need a book to write on, Matt?
Yep.
I need one too. All right. Our first photo, and not everyone, some people submitted these on Twitter and did not include their screen name on Sifted. So some of the names that we're going to use are their names on Twitter. So our first one comes from someone you should know. He's a Sifted regular. He's been a part of the crew from day one. His name is Short Raver. So bring up the first one. So Short Raver went to PAX Australia and took a picture in front of the main sign. Now keep in mind that when we started this competition, I instructed people that we would grade each photo based on creativity, exposure of the Sifted brand, composition, framing, etc. So we're trying to look at everything. Now, keep in mind, obviously, he's at PAX Australia. Big crowds there, lots of exposure to the Sifted brand to people. So that's certainly a big positive.
So right, are we doing a separate rating for each thing?
No. Just one score for each photo from 1 to 10. All right, I have my score.
All right.
That's from Short Raver. Okay, next up, Jay Lynn. You guys have seen him on the site as well, and that's his name on the site. Jay Lynn took a different angle. He somehow managed to score a Magic Leap 1 AR headset, which I've never even seen with my own 2 eyes before. Have you ever seen one?
Not that, no. I've seen the HoloLens. I've never seen a Magic Leap in person.
Well, somehow Jay Lynn got a hold of one. I don't know if he works in development or maybe he works at Magic Leap. I don't know. But he decided to take a photo outside with the Magic Leap with the powder blue and dark blue shirt. So give it a score. All right, next up. You guys all know this guy. He actually does some work for us. This is Burko. And he's got the mirror selfie going on. He's also got the light blue with the dark blue. But yeah, he went the traditional route. He took the mirror selfie.
Yeah.
All right, you got your score?
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Mike's Q. And so, Mike's Q, here's a little background. First of all, Mike's Q carved a Sifted jack-o'-lantern. And he sent us a separate photo that actually shows it lit up. So it is a legit jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, we used that on the Halloween show.
Yeah. We used just the jack-o'-lantern.
Just the jack-o'-lantern.
The separate photo we put up for the Halloween show. So here's another little background for you. Aside from the jack-o'-lantern, the beer that he is holding in his right hand, he is a fellow Pennsylvanian. And there is a beer in Pennsylvania called Yuengling that is legendary in Pennsylvania. And he knew that I'm a fellow Pennsylvanian, so he made sure to include the Yuengling beer in with his photograph. So he has the Yuengling beer, which is near and dear to my heart.
Also famous with Star Wars fans.
Yuengling is?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's why Obi-Wan was so mad at Anakin, because he killed all the younglings.
Did you just make that up?
No.
Is that a joke?
That's an actually running gag.
Really?
There was a comic about it
Wow,
and stuff. Yeah,
that's great. Thing. Okay, so Mike's Q has the jack-o'-lantern and the Yuengling. Next up, and this is one person who submitted on Twitter, but did not give his name on Sifted. I honestly don't know what it is, but on Twitter his name is TM. He's got the shirt that I'm rocking right now, the white with the violet, and he gave us the 2 thumbs up in the kitchen. Is he cooking anything back there?
Yeah, he's got a tea kettle on.
Yeah.
And looks like the laundry's open.
Yeah. All right, give him a score.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Joseph LaRussa. And he took his photo at BlizzCon.
Wow.
And he says, at the very front of the line.
10 for exposure.
That's about as good of exposure as you're going to get. Keep in mind, too, that the Sifted logo is on the back of the shirt, and everyone's behind him. So the exposure there is pretty extreme. And it's a great photo as well. Composition's good. Look at how far the crowd goes back through there.
Leading lines.
Yeah.
You got,
I'm assuming that's 2 of his boys there, right behind him. They look like they're ready to kick some ass or something.
Must be right after the Diablo announcement.
It must be. Yeah, this must have been after it was over. Maybe this is the line.
He's the only one who looks happy, so yeah.
All right, let's give him a score. Okay. Next up is Manly Scream, and that's his name on Sifted. Manly Scream also took a different angle. He took a photo, obviously, but he actually, because he does graphic design, he actually built like a poster or created a poster for Sifted. And I wish we could see better the Sifted, because if you look at the actual word Sifted, it's all built out of video game characters.
I see Mario.
Yeah, Mario's in the S there if you look really closely. So this was a unique angle. He still took the photo with the shirt, but he also kind of used what he's really good at and his personal skills to give it a little bit of his own flair. So pretty good. All right. You got your score? Next up is Rowdy Wabbit. Again, very creative. He took the sifted shirt, and it's very odd that almost all these photos are the light blue with the dark blue shirt because that is the shirt we have the most left over of for whatever reason so far of what we sold. And he obviously took the sifted shirt and put it on his character in Monster Hunter World. Again, a very creative approach. It's more of a screenshot than a photo, but still very, very creative. And it's great to see that design, one of our designs, inside a video game. I don't know how he did it, but somehow he pulled it off. So pretty freaking cool. All right, and we only got 2 left. The next one comes from Peter, and he decided to go, and apparently this photo was taken at the British Bay in County Wicklow in Ireland. So he actually went down to the ocean to a beautiful ocean shore and took his photo. Lots of thumbs up in these. I like this. Everyone's positive, having a good time.
No, the picture is almost a thumbs up-y sort of thing.
It is kind of, yeah.
Subliminal.
Yep. So bonus points to him for going somewhere. Seriously.
Leaving the house. Yes.
I mean, not did he just leave the house. He went down to the beach and got a very photogenic shot. So put your score down for that one. And our last photo is from, and I'm not actually sure how you say his name on the site, but his name on the site is SJ0S. And so he lives in Las Vegas, and he went to the crazy brand new Las Vegas esports arena. And presumably, I'm guessing he didn't kidnap these people, so I'm guessing that's his wife or girlfriend and his daughter. And if you also notice the menu, he took the time to hand draw a sifted logo on the menu that's sticking up there. So he wrangled the family. Also, I should mention,
you know that's not SJ0S. Are you sure?
Oh, I don't know that.
Wearing the shirt, it might be. Maybe it's a she.
That is a good point. It's possible, but I do not believe that to be the case.
No,
I don't think so, because someone had to take the photo.
Well, someone had to take all the photos.
Right. I don't know. That's a good point. I didn't ask any questions, but I will say this. So keep the photo up, please. She's wearing a shirt. Not only that, the daughter or the young girl, he actually posted several photos. In one of the other photos, the young girl has a Sleep is for the Dead shirt on. So it's like a family rocking like sifted gear, which I freaking love. Obviously went out to the esports arena in Vegas, got some exposure to the brand there. Pretty strong photo. Got your score?
Yeah.
Okay, pass your scores over and let me tabulate. Provided I can read them. Your writing's pretty good.
Not that bad.
It's funny, our scores have almost all been the same. That's pretty funny, man.
Wow, that is pretty close.
Uh-huh. It's crazy.
I thought I might have been too hard on a couple of these, but we're apparently in the same.
No, we are literally like, we rocked it. It's like perfect. This is crazy. Okay. We have a winner. And the winner is Mike's Q.
You carve vegetables and we're
Yeah,
gonna give you a
man.
little extra.
It's all about the effort, man. Like the amount of time he spent to carve that pumpkin and the added personal touch, knowing I'm a fan of Yingling, to bust out the Yingling beer.
The thing that actually...
it's also a great photo.
Yeah, the thing that also helped me push my score up is the fact that he got the pumpkin-colored shirt.
Yep. It's all the photo's great. The shirt matches the pumpkin. It's Halloween-themed. the effort that he put into it. There you go. Mike's Q is the winner of the first ever and possibly last ever Sifted T-shirt photo competition. I want to thank all you guys for participating. I want to thank everyone who's bought shirts so far. I really appreciate it. We're right on the cusp of breaking even. We're very close. We only need to sell a couple more. So I guess overall, it's been a net positive. It's great to see you guys wearing these shirts out there. I don't know if you guys are getting questions about them when you wear them out. I get questions when I wear this out and about. People ask where I got it from. So hopefully you guys are too. And you can tell them there's this awesome gaming website that they should all visit. Should I share the runner-up?
Sure.
Yeah?
I mean, if you want.
Well, actually, there was two that tied for the
two runner-ups.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share them. So, both these scored exactly the same between Matt and I. Joseph LaRussa at BlizzCon. Bring that one up. Yep, so that was the runner-up, one of the runner-up. And the second runner-up was number 10, SJOS at the Vegas Esports Arena. So thank you, guys. I can tell that some of you guys really put a lot of time and thought into these, and I really, really appreciate it. You guys really captured the spirit of what I was going after. So I think this was awesome. I wish I could do stuff like this more often, and maybe we'll start trying to think of ways to get you guys involved more. But it was fun. It was cool. You guys did a great job. So thank you very much. Mike's Q, I'll be contacting you very soon.
Time for the Sifted Graffiti Contest.
Hey, I would win that one.
Yeah, but we already did a thing about people getting arrested.
Right, and then I would get her. Yeah, exactly. let's just forget about that. But Sam, thank you for going through all these. Thanks you guys for taking the time to do this and all the work that you put into it. You guys did a great job. I'll say this. My wife was standing over my shoulder last night as I was collecting all these, and she was blown away by this. Because, she knows about Sifted, and she knows what I do. She knows all the hours that I work and all the time I dedicate to it. But she never gets to see, the response. And for her to see, these shirts that we made, in Australia and, in Ireland, it blows her away. And believe me, folks, you want my wife on your side. Let me just say, she's a very important part of my life. And you want her to be as positive about Sifted as possible, as do I. So there you go. That's GameFace episode 149. I think another epic episode of the show. I had a great time on the show. Hopefully you guys had a great time watching. Again, thanks to everybody who participated in the photo competition. I will say we are going to have a flash sale for Black Friday on the shirts on Friday. It's not going to be that long. It's going to be probably a handful of hours, and we're going to drop the price of the shirts for $5 for Black Friday. So hopefully you guys can pick them up, and we can get over breaking even, and we actually make a little bit of money off our shirts. That would be awesome. YouTube folks, thank you for watching the show. As always, in the description, there's a way that you can give us a free $2.50 every month, or even better, contribute to our Patreon. Some of you guys have been watching GameFace now for several years for free on YouTube, and maybe as a holiday or Christmas gift to us, you can kick us a little money for a couple months. Is that too much to ask?
They might want a trailer of the week, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We still have to do our trailer of the week and our Q&A.
Yeah,
I got so excited. It's
felt like you were wrapping up there.
I was kind of wrapping up, yeah. So we do have a trailer of the week, but it is really, really short. This is it's 20 seconds long. So if you want to ask us any questions, get them into the chat right now. This is the trailer for Borderlands 2 VR, which I normally would never, ever pick for a trailer of the week. But what's cool about this is it's a live-action trailer set in the Borderlands universe. It's really the first time you've kind of seen Borderlands come alive in the real world, which is why I chose it.
Gearbox has done a lot of stuff with live-action cosplayers in the past. They've had a really good relationship with people who cosplay the characters in this series.
Yeah.
And they've used them for professional, production stuff. So
yeah.
It's just continuing the.
This is big budget, though.
Yeah, they've this is a thing they've continually done with Borderlands since I think around 2, and they're stepping it up as they move forward. I can't wait to see what they do with Borderlands 3. Hopefully, it's just not just a bunch of people cosplaying loot boxes.
That is about as easy a costume as you could create. So anyway, here it is, live action commercial for Borderlands 2 VR.
Shall we dance
There you go. Short and sweet.
Pretty quick.
Yep, pretty quick. But you guys are even quicker. You got your questions into the chat, and we're ready to answer them. Don Lionheart, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. We appreciate it. One other thing I wanted to say before we move on is we're going to be game streaming a lot more going forward. We just streamed Pokemon Let's Go this past Saturday. Played the first 90 minutes of it or whatever. And we are full on OBS. Did you get to see the stream at all?
Mm-mm.
So we have everything hooked up now. When people subscribe, there are alerts that pop up on screen, the whole nine. I spent 2 days working on it, trying to figure it out, and I figured it all out. Unfortunately, with GameFace, because we do it through a TriCaster, it won't work because you have to send it through OBS for it to get kind of those triggers for those alerts. So we can't have as much fun on GameFace, but hopefully the show makes up for it. But we're going to be game streaming a lot more going forward, so keep an eye out for it. If you're not already following us on Twitter, make sure you do that at Sifted Games, and you'll get an alert when we're ready to go live. Or just follow us here on Twitch, and you should get an email alert if you have it set up correctly. All right, let's get to the questions. W. Matthew, as always, got to answer one of his. Let's Go is not a mainline game because simplified post-game and less deep team building. Lack of held items. Yes, held items totally changes how some Pokemon play.
That's true.
Lack of natures.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They have natures.
It says they're stat modifiers.
Yeah, well, the different, Pokemon have they're either active or they're aggressive or they're shy or they're that. They do have those in Let's Go.
Yeah.
I don't think they affect them as strongly as they do in the main games. They determine kind of how the stats build. It's harder, if a shy Pokemon doesn't raise its attack stats as readily when it levels up. I think that's part of it.
He says lack of abilities, passive skills that totally can change how a Pokemon is used.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
I mean, I guess teaching them the HM stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure what that is. That might be beyond my expertise.
And then finally, lack of doubles battle in multiplayer. Default rule set.
That is a big deal in tournament stuff. Basically, Let's Go could not make the jump to the tournament scene for Pokemon. That's kind of the defining thing, I think, on a really basic level. Is
that makes sense.
Is it wouldn't,
It'll never be used for competitive play.
Right. Okay. And that is a big deal to the hardcore.
I could understand that, but it's still, they're just being petty and childish. Seriously.
Well, I mean, in terms of brigading the thing, sure, but if that's what you get out of Pokemon,
if you don't want to buy it, fine. But to go and carpet bomb the reviews is insane. But hey,
yeah,
what else do I expect at this point?
I don't think everybody who doesn't like I don't think W. Matthews going out and carpet bombing reviews. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I wasn't going to buy it either. But I ended up getting it because I refused to buy Fallout 76, and I don't want to pay money for Battlefield 5 at launch. And I was like, well, I gotta play something in November because otherwise I'm just gonna be sitting here on the couch while you talk about everything.
Right.
So I decided to go for Pokemon, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, worked out. You weren't hype on it.
No, I wasn't.
The Legacy. Which game annoys you more with its realistic mechanics? Kingdom Come Deliverance or Red Dead Redemption 2? Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, man. Thank you very much. Matt, you're going to have to answer this because I have not played Kingdom Come.
I think Kingdom Come has more annoying gameplay concepts in it, although that was mitigated a bit when they patched in the ability to save more easily. Mm-hmm. But Red Dead Redemption is more irritating because it's closer to being, phenomenal.
Okay.
If you could iron out the annoying parts of both those games, Red Dead Redemption 2 would be a much better game. And it's more frustrating to me in the sense that I can see why some of the issues are in Kingdom Come Deliverance because of what they were trying to do.
Budget, team size,
but also kind of an obsessive thing trying to simulate some sort of reality element. But a lot of the problems I have with Red Dead Redemption 2 are just sort of arbitrary presentational decisions that I think are just not necessary.
Well, I think maybe the difference is that in Red Dead they were decisions, and in Kingdom Come some of them might have been shortcomings.
That is possible. Yeah, it's one of the I think it was the lead tech guy for EA Motive did a video where he compared basically stick response on the various modern. It's like AC Odyssey and a bunch of games with Red Dead Redemption 2, where like he moves the stick all the way to the right, and then he notes how many frames it takes for the character to respond, and it's like most of them are like 20. And like Red Dead Redemption is like 120 and 110,
Really?
and he's like he basically said like there's other parts in the game where it the response is faster, so it's not a technical limitation, it's a choice, which is
that does not surprise me at all.
Bite me.
I think we knew that all.
No, I don't think that surprised me at all. But it was interesting to see like a guy who a guy who develops for tech for a high profile developer, sitting there saying like, here's the difference, and this is why it feels so mushy when you play Red Dead Redemption 2, because every other game of its type responds like that.
Yep.
Destiny, I think, was like 2. Destiny's response time is nothing. Like that's why it feels so snappy and good.
Yeah. Let's see. Justin Horman, does Sony leaving E3 throw a wrench into the current marketing deals? Do you think Activision will have a direct video or a direct style video for Call of Duty and Destiny, or just move to Microsoft's stage?
That's a really good question.
That's a really good question, but I think you just hit the nail on the head right there, which means Microsoft has it all. Every third-party game. Think about it. Microsoft is dancing in the streets right now knowing Sony's not going to E3. They get everything. They get the pick of the litter. Every year, you guys may not know this, but every year it's a battle behind the scenes of who gets what third-party game. Is Microsoft or Sony? And the publishers play with Microsoft or Sony to get better slots. So they'll say, well, Microsoft is offering us the top of the D block. What will you do for us? Or they're giving us a slot right after Gears, and they negotiate to try to get better spots in the press conferences. There's no negotiation anymore. Microsoft gets them all, so now it can just pick and choose what it wants or does not want in its press conference, which is gigantic. I don't know if Sony's really thought this whole through. Like, our viewers just watching this stream came up with some really good stuff that it seems like Sony didn't even think about. What
makes me wonder if that deal is over.
I don't know. It's possible. What about throwing a wrench into the marketing deals?
Maybe. I mean, presumably Sony pre-warned all their partners about this. Like, that's not a thing you really, unless the ESA went rogue on them. I mean, that's possible. I guess
it's possible, but highly unlikely.
But like, I feel like they, everybody knew this. Internally knew this was coming down the pipeline at some point. So presumably they figured out a way to soothe things over, or they told them like what their plan is beyond not being at E3, that like we're going to do this instead and you'll get your exposure then. Like no matter what and when and how Sony does their reveal of the PS5, it's going to have millions of people paying attention to it, and these companies that maybe don't get the Sony stage at E3 are going to get the Sony stage then, whenever that may be. And the gamble, I think the gamble here, the roll of the dice here for Sony is they're betting that not having that be at E3 is not going to make a difference in terms of engagement.
Yeah.
And I think they might not be wrong.
Yeah. But
we'll see.
Certainly
gives Microsoft a big chance.
Absolutely.
To do some hefty moves.
I don't know if Sony thought this through. Don Lionheart, what is each of your favorite family holiday traditions? I'm assuming you're talking about Thanksgiving, because we have time to talk about Christmas or whatever you celebrate at the end of the year.
We don't really have
Did you have any family traditions?
Not really. My mom would make Yorkshire pudding for Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that's a tradition. I guess that's the closest to tradition we get. And it's actually real Yorkshire pudding, not like the weird American version. It's like this. It's a recipe handed down from the Old English side of the family. So like when we do Yorkshire pudding and people that are used to American Yorkshire pudding come over, they're like, "What the hell is that?" It's like, that's real Yorkshire pudding.
That's
sit down,
legit.
Sit down and have some gravy, son. So yeah, I like that. That's a thing I associate with holiday stuff. So I like that. I'm not going to have any of it this week, but there we go.
I'm not either. I'm not going home for Thanksgiving either. But my mom makes my mom's side of the family is Italian. My great grandmother and grandfather literally came through Ellis Island from Italy, from Sicily, into the United States, and they brought a lot of recipes with them. And a lot of the recipes that they brought with them were for bread. So my mom makes this thing called stacciata. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's this. She makes like the dough in a bowl, and then she spreads it out onto like a greased baking sheet, and then puts like salt and pepper on top of it, and then bakes it. And it is just ridiculously good. And then she also makes homemade rolls that have been handed down in my family for like centuries, and they're like people fight over those. So she makes those at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, or whatever. Bread, I guess, really is.
Yeah, I mean, home-baked bread. It's hard to get better
bomb.
than that.
Absolutely. Let's see. We'll answer a couple more. Super Cordon Blue. Do you expect the Xbox One X to stick around as the base console after MS announces the Xbox 2? Would be a shame for MS to never really realize the X's potential completely. Well, I think the X becomes irrelevant once the Xbox 2 comes out.
Well, it becomes the old console. But I think it's going to be like the PlayStation 4, where everything that's released for the next console is still going to run on the
it's still
previous
going to work.
one.
Yeah.
It's just going to run better and look better.
I think it'll still work on like the base Xbox One.
For the most part,
actually.
until you hit a point where like you really are using some kind of tech that can't be replicated. Yeah. I think the only real reason to upgrade to a new console for quite some time is going to be you want that 60 frames per second, you want the full 4K, you want the high-res texture pack. I think everything's going to stay pretty backwards compatible as we move forward.
Joaquim Dragoon, any other game that can scratch the Skyrim itch other than Skyrim? I mean, I think The Witcher scratches the itch.
Sort of. I mean, in terms of like a big, broad fantasy world thing, yeah. And it's not like you're, I like The Witcher's combat fine, but it's, it's not like you're dealing with two gleaming paragons of combat design in either of those games,
Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, those are pretty good. If you can tolerate the jankiness of Two Worlds 2, that wasn't like a terrible facsimile.
It is kind of crazy, though, that there aren't more Skyrim clones. I mean, the design is cloned, but not like high fantasy setting.
Yeah, well, they're hard to make. I mean, there was a reason Bethesda's games are full of bugs, because they're hard to make. And like usually the kind of the scope and the atmosphere and the immersion of those games makes up for the technical problems you have to fight over. But like you said with Fallout 76, you can't just reload the save and try to get past that part again. You have to live with the technical problem that screwed you over. Yep. So that is a big morale hit if you're playing a game like that. I don't know if there is a Skyrim equivalent that really matches up, unless you're talking about like one of those total conversion mods for Skyrim. There's a couple of Skyrim mods that like for PC and I guess on Xbox that like Forgotten City and stuff that are basically like 20-hour like things that people have made just off that. I guess the real testament to that is that like I hadn't played Skyrim in a long time, and then when the special edition came out and I got it for free on Steam because I already had the old one, I loaded it up to see what it looked like, and then I played it for 80 hours. Like
that's a testament to it.
It's just game. Like, yeah, there's not a whole lot like it.
Oh, I should also mention that while I was working on all this stuff for OBS, I also uploaded emoticons. So we have an emoticon for Sifted if you guys are Twitch Prime subscribers.
Like the S?
Nope. I'm not going to tell people what it is until somebody uses it.
Is it Father Shane?
No, it's not.
You probably couldn't see that on an emoticon.
But there is an emoticon that's active. Oh, someone just used it. There it is.
Oh, I thought that was Frankenstein when people use it. People had it before.
It's Pactor. There it is. Now everyone's firing it off. Yep, there you go. There are other emoticons as well, but you have to, I don't even know if it's even possible to use them. You have to subscribe for like $20 or something insane.
That's Pactor.
I just uploaded them and just in case.
Is that Pactor's face when he realizes that Fallout 76 is not going to be a 90 plus on Metacritic?
It might be. Well, no, then he wouldn't be green with envy, right? Let's see. We'll answer one or two more. Mitchell is alive. Any games you guys planning on playing in your back catalog over the holidays? Anything you regret not playing or not playing enough of when it came out?
No
backlog stuff for me. I mean, unless you're talking about Christmas. We're a little early for the Christmas questions. If you're talking about Thanksgiving, I'm going to be playing Battlefield 5.
I mean, I'll probably still be playing Just Cause 4 when Christmas comes around.
Yeah. I think he's talking about Thanksgiving break. Because for most people, they have like 4 or 5 days off. I don't know what that's like anymore, but most people have like a 4 or 5 day weekend coming up.
I'm probably just going to keep playing Pokemon.
I'll finish Pokemon. I'm pretty close to the end. And then I have to play Battlefield over Thanksgiving.
I don't have to do that.
You seem real happy about that.
That whole thing looks like a train wreck to me. I mean, I might jump in on it like in March when the Battle Royale thing shows up, and they have put more content in and finish the campaign. Like, what the fuck? Like, I ain't paying $60 for that.
I don't blame you.
Like, come on. And I'm a fan of Battlefield. I played the beta. I really liked what I played in the beta, but that ain't a finished game you're charging me for. 'Cause I can't do it.
Veritas, if you live in the LA area, is a $70 ticket to the Game Awards worth it? You're putting us in an awkward position.
I wouldn't. But that's partly because I could probably just email Jeff and get in.
Yeah. But would you spend $70 to go? I mean, here's the thing, though. There will be a lot of developers there, people that maybe people don't have a chance to ever meet.
I guess.
But then would they meet them? Probably not.
It's not like a meet and greet thing.
Well, there's an after party, but the way the after party is set up, I don't want to say it's lame because I love Jeff, but it's kind of lame because because like all the people that everybody wants to interact with are up in this VIP area, and then everybody who actually spent money to go to the show is like down on the floor. And it's this thing where the people on the floor are like looking up at like the VIP. I don't know. It's weird. I understand why it's there because there are probably some developers that don't want people to have. I mean, in all honesty, with the crazy stuff that's happening in our society right now, I totally get it. But it is kind of weird when you go. And so people who maybe go into the show to hope that maybe they could talk to their favorite developer or whatever, I would say the chances of that are pretty slim. Yeah. However, you will be very close to them, and they'll walk past you and go up on stage, so you'll be able to see them. But I would just say don't spend the money if you're doing it because you think you're going to meet your favorite game developer.
Yeah. Also, like, maybe...
talk to...
Yeah, if you can get, like, a group together, it might be willing to do that.
Yeah. If you could roll with a crew of, like, 5 of your friends... you probably have a good time.
Yeah.
Because the after party is fun. It's like open bar and whatnot. So even after the show's over, you can go and party and listen to music and play games and all that. So if you can get a crew together, I'd say go for it. Let's see. One more, if we can find one. J. Reed, Vic7, last question of the night. Is perhaps the primary reason Bethesda is willing to go to the mat to keep using... I love that, go to the mat. To keep using long, outdated engine and tools, the fact that on PC, a huge amount of their sales likely come from millions of people who buy at full price just to mod their games, and Bethesda's reluctance to give up that advantage. I always have to ponder J. Reed Vic's questions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, people mod everything. Like, if people can dig into GTA 5 and GTA 4 and mod those things as hard as they do, like, I don't think that would stop the mod scene with a new engine with Bethesda. People will do it. People, especially because, at this point, it's just sort of a given that there's going to be a fan patch that makes the game work properly. Like, there's the unofficial fan patch for Skyrim and the one for Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Like, there's always that kind of, like, if you only get one thing, get this one patch that fixes all these things that Bethesda's never going to fix.
Right.
I don't see the community walking away from that just because the engine changes.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, maybe they are trying to stick with it because they've kludged together that the creators club thing or whatever, like they don't want to rebuild that on a new engine. That could be part of it. That's gross if that's true. So yeah, maybe that it's part of it. Like they got this paid mod thing in place that they don't want to like have to rebuild in a new engine. That could be a thing because I think that took a long time to get working. I don't know. Make better games with better combat. That's really all I want. I don't care how you do it.
All right, that's it. This time, this is really the close of the show. GameFace 149 is in the books. As I said earlier, if you're watching on YouTube, directions down below. You can give us a free $2.50 with Twitch Prime. Although I really would hope that you guys would consider pledging to our Patreon. Could use the help. And if you guys have been watching Pactor Factor and GameFace for free on YouTube for years now, maybe kick us $1 or $2 for the holidays so Matt and I can buy a beer or something. That would be awesome. So anyway, thanks again to everybody who competed in the photo contest. You guys all did a great job. I really am impressed with what you guys did and your creativity and your dedication to it. and Mike's Q will be reaching out to you very soon about your free game. So everybody have a great night. Have a safe, awesome, fun, family and friend-filled Thanksgiving. We'll see you on the other side. GameFace is up and out.